Good morning, colleagues. I think we are ready to start our morning session. I'm just going to wait for the ones that are entering the room so that they can sit at their places. So today we have, in this morning session, we have one opinion to adopt. And it is opinion NAT 993, a sustainable livestock strategy to support the EU's food strategic autonomy and climate and biodiversity objectives. It is an exploratory opinion requested by the Irish Presidency of the Council of the EU. We have our rapporteur, Joe Healy, and co-rapporteur, Florian Dahlstein, with us. So I would like to give the floor to Joe Healy, and you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy President, and good morning, everyone, and good to see a full room. Before I start off, I want to thank all the people that was involved in this. I was very lucky to have Florian as my co-rapporteur, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, the Secretariat, the members of the study group, NAT, but also the people who got involved and sent in amendments. A sincere thanks for your ability to be constructive in the talk and in reaching compromises, so that was really appreciated. This was very much a full-on opinion because the timelines were reasonably tight, so we had to put a lot of time into it, and as well as that, and I believe that our President has been invited to the Agri-Fish Council meeting, the informal one in December in Ireland, to present the key findings of this opinion. So that is very much appreciated and welcomed. We based the opinion on 3 inseparable pillars of sustainability, competitiveness and animal welfare. The key focus was to look positively at the EU livestock, and to try and build a positive narrative and reverse the downward trend in EU livestock numbers, which is down by between 10 and 20% over the past 2 decades. A few of the key points include strongly supporting environmental improvement and animal welfare as core pillars, and highlighted the need for the requirements to be practical, with financial support to recognise the costs on farmers. Incidentally, all the support given to livestock producers has a multiplier effect, overall of 2.1, and in the cattle sector it's 4.1. Also highlighted the importance of livestock farming to the rural and peripheral economies and the risk of land abandonment if livestock farming isn't supported and carried on in those areas. Called for an adequate CAP budget and targeted support and adoption of technologies to help reduce emissions. And another key point was in relation to the protein plant production plan, and strong mention also goes to research, innovation, labelling, education and strengthening farmers' positions in the food chain. Supporting livestock farmers is not only about agriculture, it's about Europe's food security, strategic autonomy, rural vitality and resilience. So I suppose, members, in a nutshell, it's a case of if our policymakers are serious about our environment, preventing carbon leakage a la the JRC 2040 report, and also meeting the global demand for for meat proteins, then the livestock sector across Europe must be supported and encouraged. And now I'll hand over to Florian to present his views on the opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. I give the floor to the co-rapporteur, Florian Dahlstein. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President. Good morning, colleagues. I will give my introductory remarks in German. Sehr geehrte Frau Präsidentin, sehr geehrte Kolleginnen und Kollegen, lieber Joe, was uns hier mit dieser Stellungnahme gemeinsam gelungen ist, allen Beteiligten und uns beiden, und darüber bin ich sehr froh, ist, dass wir Joe hat es gesagt, ein positives, zuversichtliches Narrativ aufschreiben können für die Zukunft der Nutztierhaltung in der Europäischen Union. Nutztierhaltung ist essentiell, ist unsere zentrale Botschaft, die wir hier machen. Ohne die Nutztierhaltung gibt es keine Kreislaufwirtschaft und somit auch keine Landwirtschaft. Und diese positive, zuversichtliche Botschaft zieht sich wie ein roter Faden durch die Stellungnahme, durch den Entwurf, den wir heute vorlegen. 3 Punkte möchte ich ansprechen, die mir besonders wichtig sind. Joe hat es auch schon angerissen. Wir haben drei Dimensionen der Nachhaltigkeit hier betrachtet und jede Dimension mit Maßnahmen, mit Analysen befüttert. Ein Punkt, den wir hier vorschlagen, ist, dass wir Wettbewerbsfähigkeit herstellen wollen, dass wir Wirtschaftlichkeit herstellen wollen. Und da sehen wir zwei Komponenten sehr wichtig. Einerseits Planungssicherheit. Wir brauchen Investitionssicherheit für Investitionen in eine nachhaltige Entwicklung des Sektors über mehrere Dekaden. Und da sozusagen regulatorische Sicherheit, dass Investitionen auch langfristig gelten. Und wir brauchen auch eine adäquate finanzielle Ausstattung in und außerhalb der gemeinsamen Agrarpolitik. Das ist letztendlich auch wichtig, um Tierwohl, Umwelt, Klimamaßnahmen umzusetzen. Das bringt mich in den zweiten Teil. Für diesen Bereich Tierwohl, Umwelt und Klimamaßnahmen wollen wir einen kooperativen Ansatz schaffen. Heute ist es leider viel zu häufig der Fall, dass wir zwischen verschiedenen Politikbereichen Zielkonflikte haben. Ein Beispiel, wenn Sie an freigelüftete Ställe denken, das ist ja heutzutage in zum Beispiel Milchviehhaltung die Norm in Deutschland. Es wird sehr viel in freigelüftete Ställe investiert zum Tierwohl, zu Tierwohlmaßnahmen. Dann haben wir aber gleichzeitig einen höheren Austrag an Emissionen, also eine schlechtere Wirkung, was die Emissionsexposition angeht. Und das ist ein Zielkonflikt, mit dem wir umgehen müssen und deswegen kooperative Maßnahmen in den Mittelpunkt stellen. Wie zum Beispiel Weideland, wo wir Produktivität haben, wo wir eine Kohlenstoffsenke haben, wo wir auch Biodiversitätsfokus haben und natürlich exzellente Tierwohlbedingungen. Und zum Schluss noch kurz einen dritten Punkt, den ich ansprechen möchte. Wir bewerben auch, nicht zuletzt, weil wir diese hohen Standards haben in Europa, unsere heimische Produktion. Wir haben zwei Forderungen hier in dieser Stellungnahme. Einerseits eine konsequente Herkunftskennzeichnung für heimische tierische Proteine und andererseits fordern wir eine Exportstrategie für tierische Proteine mit Ursprung aus der Europäischen Union, um offensiv Handelsverhandlungen zu betreiben und unseren Sektor auch global zu bewerben. Wir haben 22 Politikempfehlungen und ich freue mich auf die Diskussion heute und die Umsetzung der Strategie in den kommenden Monaten. Vielen Dank für die Aufmerksamkeit.
Thank you. Well, the floor has been opened for the discussion, so I will give the floor to Mr. Rosceramo, number 315. So please, the floor is yours.
Muy buenos días y muchas gracias, Presidenta. En primer lugar, me gustaría dar la enhorabuena a los ponentes por este dictamen, un documento que responde con rigor a la petición de la presidencia irlandesa, además, en un momento decisivo con la estrategia ganadera de la Comisión ya publicada y el marco financiero plurianual en plena negociación. Me gustaría destacar tres mensajes. Primero, sin financiación no hay estrategia ganadera ni transición. Pedirle a un ganadero atrapado por la inflación de costes y los márgenes mínimos que invierta en costosas tecnologías de mitigación de emisiones o reformas estructurales es ignorar la realidad financiera del campo. Por eso, los objetivos climáticos y en bienestar animal exigen presupuesto adicional y una PAC post-2027 con un presupuesto identificable, protegido y no recortado, así como los ponentes han puesto en su documento. Y segundo, la ganadería extensiva, como ya lo trasladamos en el dictamen del CSNAT 825, no es el problema, es parte de la solución climática y de vertebración territorial. Y tercero, sin relevo generacional en el sector ganadero no habrá autonomía estratégica alimentaria que defender. Por todo ello, pido el voto favorable para este buen documento que han hecho yo y Florian. Gracias.
Thank you so much. I'll give the floor to Mr. Mito, so please stick to 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Esteemed guests, dear colleagues, the European Union's push towards a sustainable livestock strategy, embedded within the European Green Deal and Farm-to-Fork strategy, represent a highly complex policy challenge. Here we have a difficult balancing act, in the same time reducing environmental footprints while simultaneously safeguarding Europe's food strategic autonomy. Achieving these synchronized goals exposes critical friction points and structural challenges across the agriculture landscape. The core difficulty lies in the fact that policy designed to benefit one objective can inadvertently sabotage another one. So we have, dear colleagues, a kind of trilemma: strategic autonomy versus climate changes versus biodiversity. With this opinion, we succeeded to achieve a very fine balance. So we have a very good two rapporteurs which have to be supported in this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Mr. De Costa. The floor is yours. 1 minute, please.
Oui, voilà. Félicitations au rapporteur. Merci d'avoir accepté les amendements. Très beau travail. Néanmoins, donc tous les consommateurs européens aiment la viande, mais pas mal de défis sont à l'ordre du jour. Les maladies dans les élevages, les reprises par les jeunes, les constructions en zone agricole qui deviennent quasiment impossibles. En résumé, si on n'aide pas les éleveurs, demain, je crains fort qu'il n'y en ait plus. Un danger supplémentaire s'ajoute à tout ça, c'est l'élargissement dont on va parler avec l'arrivée de millions de poulets qui viennent d'Ukraine. Peut-être un petit bémol, c'est l'élevage de poissons qui régulièrement est oublié et qui reste un atout pour nos élevages en Europe. Merci.
Thank you. I give the floor to Madame Riedinger-Balzer.
Merci pour cet avis. Je représente l'artisanat français et plus précisément la boucherie artisanale qui a toujours soutenu à fond l'élevage français et européen qui offre des garanties optimales en matière de sécurité alimentaire. Soutenir cet élevage, c'est aussi garantir l'entretien des campagnes. On a vu hier avec l'avis sur les feux de forêt combien c'est important. C'est lutter aussi contre la désertification des territoires et surtout œuvrer pour notre souveraineté alimentaire.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, the floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Bonjour à toutes et tous. Tout d'abord, félicitations aux rapporteurs et aux co-rapporteurs. Merci à eux, au secrétariat, aux collègues qui ont travaillé ensemble sur cet avis. Je pense qu'il est équilibré et je vous invite à le soutenir. Je souligne aussi que dedans, on y mentionne explicitement l'agroforesterie, la présence d'arbres et de haies autour des bâtiments d'élevage, dans les champs, avec des apports en qualité pour nos animaux, une protection thermique, des fourrages, de la litière. La Commission européenne, qui vient de publier sa stratégie, malheureusement, ne fait aucune mention de l'agroécologie, alors même que sur sa page de présentation, la photo explicitement met en avant les arbres et les animaux, notamment dans les élevages extensifs cités par mon collègue Rocher-Rameau. Merci.
Thank you so much. And our last speaker today is Mr. Puzdalizak. So the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Félicitations effectivement aux rapporteurs et à tous les gens qui ont œuvré positivement sur cet avis. Comme Arnaud Schwartz vient de le dire, le 7 juillet, la DG Agri a fait sa communication sur l'élevage. Dans son propos, elle indique clairement que les zones où l'agriculture régresse, c'est là où l'élevage régresse. Donc il y a vraiment un effort à faire particulièrement là-dessus. Je voulais aussi souligner l'importance des concurrences déloyales. Nous ne sommes pas opposés au commerce, néanmoins, quand le consommateur ne sait pas que le poulet est ukrainien, que la viande vient du Mercosur, que le produit transformé est élevé selon des pratiques interdites et avec des produits interdits dans l'Union européenne, c'est totalement honteux pour le consommateur. Et je voulais souligner l'importance, pour nous éleveurs, d'être efficace. Et je voulais simplement dire qu'aujourd'hui, au Danemark, on a l'agriculture biologique, on est capable de produire 13 000 litres de lait par vache. C'était très efficace. On a besoin de cette efficacité pour faire de l'élevage durable.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give the floor to rapporteur and co-rapporteur, and I would like them to stick to 1 minute per line. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed again, and indeed thanks to all the people for their positive contributions, and to the French Ms. Balzar, who mentioned about the drop in livestock numbers. France is one of the areas where, you know, there's a big livestock drop in the cattle numbers, down 16% in the last 10 years. Pig numbers, I think, in Germany were down 22%. So they're the sort of livestock numbers in a region that's the most regulated, the safest and the most carbon efficient in the world. And I think it was good last year to see the JRC report highlight that and to show that by supporting production in the EU, we will have a net benefit and a net reduction in global emissions of 9 million tonnes. So, you know, that highlights the fact that we are the most carbon efficient. So, look, I look forward, thank you all for your kind contributions, and I look forward to your support for the opinion in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President. Nothing more for me to add, just to say thank you to all the people involved in drafting this opinion and all the relevant input. Now I think we encapsulated all the themes in the text, and we'll move forward with this. The Commission strategy has been published in the meantime last week, as many of you may have seen. And it is encouraging to see that many of the topics we address, many of the positive messages we give have also found its way already into the original draft of the Commission. In some areas, I think we are a bit more ambitious, and we have the 22 policy recommendations in the paper today that will complement the Commission strategy well, and I look forward to working with Joe and the rest of the team and the other institutions in making the implementation happen. That's key now in the forthcoming revision of animal welfare and other legislations in the EU, that we turn these good narratives into action. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, dear colleagues, we have 8 amendments on this opinion, and all the 8 amendments have been adopted and accepted. So, if you agree, I would like to ask any one of you if you are against any of these amendments. So in order to speed up, let's do all 8 amendments together. So is there anyone who is against any amendment? I see there is none. Thank you very much. We can go to the vote on the opinion NAT 993, Sustainable Livestock Strategy to support the EU's food strategic autonomy and climate and biodiversity objectives. So the vote is open. Yes, thank you very much. And we are going to add one vote, the President's vote. So thank you, President, for voting. So it is yes 226. Congratulations. So before we continue to the official part of our today's plenary, I would first like to welcome our honored guests that are present in the room. But before going further, I would like to ask our colleague Eva Hacik to come here and to explain all of you the procedure of making a family photo. So, Eva, could you please come up and explain our colleagues what we should do? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. Dear guests, dear colleagues, dear members, I have a pleasure to invite you to take the family photo. Commissioner Marta, please come here. President Séamus Boland, please. Deputy Vice Prime Minister, please to join us. Please, dear members, please here, closer to me, to this stage, because we will take the family photo here. Please, please. Hello. Please, please. Please here. This is the place. No, this is. We put here. Yes, we put here.
Est-ce que ça c'est
here. Yes.
Benjamin? Benjamin?
Because our photographer is here. So please here. Yes. Voilà. Members, dear members of the committee, come join us. No, on this stage, please. Yes, on this stage.
Where are we?
Sorry?
Where are we?
Ouais, c'est qui? Okay, please here. Come. Okay. Come here, on the stage, on the stage. Yes, please, here. Yes, here. Dear Commissioner here, yes, please. Yes, excellent. Maria.
De Vice-President.
Les deux vice-présidents.
Deux vice-présidents.
Non.
Non, we're there. Tu
Thank you
me
very much.
permets que je le fasse. Permets-moi. Please. Sorry. Yes. Voilà. Okay, we are here, yes. We have here Pietro, Pietro Barbieri. Where is Sif Holst? Where is Sif? Ah, sorry. We have to take the place for Sif. Please, Sif. Please. Check here, please.
You can say here. The judge can write.
No, here. It's okay? No, please. Can you take the sage? No? Please. No, it's not possible? Okay. Thank you very much. Krzysztofie, żeby widać Holst było. Thank you very much. Attention. Please, look at our photographer. No. Ah, nous sommes sur la photo. Va. Okay. We're smiling to our future together. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bravo.
Good morning, everybody. So, will I...
Like with a cow.
Yeah. Once a farmer, always a farmer. That's why the cowbell is used from time to time. So thank you for paying attention. I notice it's working quite a bit. I notice some farmers are also giving me a thumbs up. So, okay, you're now taking your seats, and it's fantastic to see such a great turnout this morning. I will begin by going to the lectern to make a speech, but before I do, I just want to warmly welcome Commissioner Marta to the event this morning. She has been doing extraordinary work in this area, and you will hear all of that. But also to welcome, I think it's 42 delegates from the candidate countries. Give them a good, warm welcome. So with that, you're going to have to watch me speaking from the lectern, so give me a second, okay? So, distinguished colleagues, dear Commissioner Koss again, Marta, distinguished Your Excellencies, we are aware of that, and also guests and colleagues, and of course delegates from the candidate countries. It is indeed a great pleasure to formally open this high-level debate on enlargement. I would like to start by thanking the European Commission and personally Commissioner Koss, whom I warmly welcome to our plenary, and more generally for the strong commitment and the continued partnership in advancing the enlargement agenda. Let me give a special welcome to this House, which is also theirs, to the esteemed enlarged candidate members. As I said, you're coming from Albania, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Georgia, Kosovo, Moldova, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, Turkey, and Ukraine. You're very welcome. And it is a tribute to the excitement, you being here personally, that we are so pleased, and everybody, and there is a buzz about the air this morning. In this increasingly complex geopolitical environment, I'm not talking about the World Cup, by the way, the enlargement is geostrategic investment. It is a strong, more stable, more secure, and really a more united Europe. We are talking about a united Europe, yet a united Europe that excludes nobody. Recent developments have confirmed that enlargement is once again at the centre of the European agenda. I was commending yesterday Minister Byrne for the strong start of the Irish presidency with the holding of 4 accession conferences last Tuesday with Albania, Montenegro, Ukraine and Moldova. And isn't it fantastic that we must be the only power in the world that countries want to actually join the Union? Isn't that incredible? Most other countries are trying to either buy them, steal them, or drag them somehow into their remit. Here we have countries voluntary, wishing and strongly advocating, and that says a lot for the European Union. So it is about the physical expansion, but it's also about a concept. It's about a peace project. It's about the EU principles and values. It is not just about institutions. It's about negotiations. It's about talking. It's about dialogue. And most of all, it is about the lives of people on an everyday level. That is why, speaking with the Deputy Prime Minister, Mikhail Popsai, this morning, very pleased to meet you, I think he said something really inspiring to me. He basically said, yes, we can have awkward civil society, we can have awkward opposition, but that is a sign of health. That is a sign of a democracy embracing diversity, and that's why it's so important. Social partners and civil society organisations who are represented in this House play an indispensable role in promoting democratic values, strengthening public trust, supporting reforms and ensuring that citizens remain at the centre of the accession process. That is why the EESC, we have consistently advocated the placing of civil society at the heart of Europe. That is where we should be, and that is the best guarantee that any institution, any power, will have real democratic roots. The initiative is not symbolic, but very concrete and pragmatic. Of course, it's a win-win exercise. It enables enlarged candidate members to bring their expertise and practical experience directly into our work. And it also ensures that our opinions are better informed and better reflect the concerns and priorities of societies they represent as they do prepare for EU membership. And again, my visits to some countries, lots of people talking about the difficult challenge of meeting the barriers. And I have to say, again, talking about Moldova, because I was there, I was incredibly impressed by the attitude of the younger people who basically said we need to do it anyway, because we need to elevate ourselves into a better place. So we welcome the fact that enlargement and engagement with the partners, and especially the European Democracy Shield and the Civil Society Strategy, are now central to EU Commission policy. And I thank the Commission, President von der Leyen particularly, who put it there. And of course, Commissioner Michael McGrath, who is now involved in carrying it out. We heard yesterday from Minister Byrne, who spoke about the Irish presidency. These candidate countries will be associated with the European Centre for Democratic Resilience. All this is clear recognition that the continuum between current and further and future member states will be fixed. And our enlargement candidate members initiative goes in this direction. It is very practical. It is a practical application, gradual integration approach. We are very grateful to the European Commission for providing necessary support to continue and expand this important work. And as I said this morning, the work is about bringing the countries into membership and into living with the rest of the European family. But it doesn't finish there. When it's done, we now have to persuade all the existing countries to welcome these countries with open arms. And this is why this civil society house, with representatives for you, the members, coming from the 27 members from all parts of the continent, will be required to spread the message that these countries want and are willing to join our family. That, to me, is the greatest work we can do in EESC to ensure that that happens. And that's why, Commissioner, we will be talking later on. During my mandate as President of the EESC, I have made it a priority to engage directly with our partners in candidate countries. As I said, I have been formally to Ukraine before I was President. I've been to Moldova, and I have a number of visits planned to the other countries. So I hope to see you all in your own place, if that's okay with you. I also look forward to, in particular, meeting Montenegro in October, a country that is also well advanced. So I congratulate you from Montenegro for the work you've been doing. It is first and foremost, next year I will be in Albania, another frontrunner in the accession. Our Western Balkans Committee was in North Macedonia earlier this year and plans to continue our engagement in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Kosovo are also in place. Across all of the candidate countries, one lesson stands out. Successful enlargement depends not only on governments and institutions, but it depends on strong, active, sometimes troublesome civil society, but that's what it means to be in Europe. So the voices deserve our attention. As the first EU institution to have officially expressed its support for the aspirations of Serbian youth, I can proudly claim that the EESC is listening to citizens who are relentlessly showing their commitment to democratic values. Our recent exchanges with Turkish and Georgian civil society representatives have also underlined the importance of maintaining this continuous engagement. It's all about dialogue. A certain vice president of another country talked about Europe being too much jaw-jaw. I'm very proud of that. We should do plenty of jaw-jaw. That's how we understand each other, our different cultures, as Minister Byrne pointed out yesterday at our plenary. So one thing is clear, the future of Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova and all countries committed to the European path lies in a united Europe that leaves nobody behind, that is inclusive, that hears the very different voices and works through the jaw-jaw to bring some compromise and some understanding. So I look forward to a very constructive exchange of views today among all of you. So, dear Commissioner, once again, thank you for being here. And now I offer you the floor, and you're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President, dear Séamus, dear members, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. If we would have many people like you, Shimon, in the sense of promoting the accession process or our candidates, I wouldn't fear what comes upon us in the future. Thank you so much for these nice words. It is a pleasure to be here at the European Economic and Social Committee, and I'm glad that this session is also open, as you call it, enlargement candidate members. That gives us a glimpse into the future of Europe. We have here today a hemicycle of a united Europe already. I'm looking forward to the day when we will see the same mix of nationalities in the European Parliament. The European Economic and Social Committee is a forum that has long worked very closely with our candidates, even at a time when enlargement was lower on the agenda of EU institutions and EU capitals. A lot of work we do in the enlargement process may appear technical, but the truth is that almost all of it is highly political. Because, in essence, what we are working for is a societal transformation. Because the reforms we are enacting with our candidate countries touch on existing power structures. They help build resilient democratic structures, they ensure fair judicial procedures, and they safeguard fundamental rights. These are the foundations on which civil society and civic representatives can freely do their work without intimidation and without threats. Because in a well-functioning democracy, civil society organizations play a vital role in holding governments to account. Sometimes they don't like this. Your contribution is indispensable in shaping a future grounded in transparency, integrity and public trust. This is why we always insist that EU accession reforms are carried out in consultation with civil society, with trade unions and with chambers of commerce, because more voices and more participation lead to better laws. Thank you for the work you are doing in this respect. We will need you, as you have said before, dear President, a lot in the years to come, because enlargement is currently advancing at a speed we have not seen in the last 15 years, and I can tell you I have the best possible job in the world, because this is it. Just earlier this week, as you have been mentioning, we had a Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday, under the Irish presidency, we opened a new cluster with Ukraine and Moldova. Please, hands up, representatives from Ukraine and Moldova. Where are you? This is the second cluster after we opened the all-important fundamental cluster on June 15. All four remaining clusters are ready to be open, and soon as the Council will achieve the consensus, we will do this. Then, this week, we also closed 2 chapters with Montenegro. Where are you, representatives of Montenegro, including the ambassador there? And we closed 3 chapters for Albania. For this country, we started closing the chapters for the first time. I hope the rest of the Western Balkan region and all other candidates, like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Turkey and Georgia, will soon mirror this momentum. This needs leadership, and it needs the building of trust with all 27 our member states. And this was my message last week in North Macedonia. Who is here from North Macedonia? Welcome. A country which is advancing fast on growth plan reforms and is one of the top performers in this area, but needs to enact agreed constitutional change to be able to bring the same dynamic to the enlargement negotiations. And it is also what we need to see in Serbia, where we have the representatives. Welcome. The Commission has long recommended the opening of Cluster 3. The technical conditions are met, but several EU members still lack the trust to make a unanimous positive decision possible. This is something the Serbian leadership needs to focus on. The most advanced country, Montenegro, has already closed more than half of all the negotiating chapters. And member states have started to draft Montenegro's accession treaty. This is a step we have not seen since 2009, when we started doing this for Croatia. And under the Irish presidency, your country, dear Séamus, we have a possibility that we will close the negotiations with Montenegro at the end of the year. As the German Chancellor Merz put it recently, Montenegro could already enter the final phase of the enlargement process, and we fully support their vision 28 by 28, meaning that Montenegro would become a member, 28th member of the EU in 2028. Yes, enlargement is again a priority. As you have said, Mr. President, it is incredible that countries on a free basis want to join us, because it is today also part of reshaping Europe's political and security architecture to create a Europe capable of competing with other major global powers. That's why I always stress that enlargement today is really much more than just the enlargement. This is only possible if we successfully bring our neighbourhood into our union. Enlargement isn't just for the candidates to catch up with us. There are serious benefits for us in the EU. Enlargement is today also a security policy. It is increasingly about how we Europeans can work together in the new realities of the world we live in. For the candidates, this means joining a club of nations that offers protection against security threats and economic volatility. The referendum in Iceland on 29th of August can be seen in this light. And if the citizens of Iceland will say yes, then we will have another, or again, candidate country. At the same time, the focus has also shifted inside the EU to how our candidates are making our European Union stronger. Most of all, this is true in Ukraine. When the war ends, Ukraine will be a country that has prevailed against Russia in an existential war. It will be among Europe's strongest military powers, with expertise that no one else has it. It will be central to European security. Integrating such a country into the heart of Europe will be pure self-interest. It is about making peace and stability permanent. Ukraine is simply too big to fail. Next to security, there is also a compelling economic case. Every previous enlargement has been an economic success story. Just look at Poland. Do we have their representatives here from Poland? Welcome. So your country has tripled its GDP since you are a member of the EU. Already now there is a great interest from investors in our candidate countries. We know that Poland today is having close to 70 billion trade with Germany, its neighbour. Soon this will be more than Germany is trading with France, and France is one of the most important trading partners. So congratulations to Poland, to your people and your economic success. All of these issues are increasingly being discussed at the highest political level. I have noticed this firsthand. In all my recent travels to member states, I have not only met the foreign ministers, but also the prime ministers. Because important questions on how our continent could be structured through enlargement or forms of close association are already being discussed among leaders. They know that today's world bears little comparison to the world of the Big Bang enlargement of 2004, and we need to evolve. We still are using the methodology which is plus minus the same as it was 40 years back when Spain and Portugal joined the EU. This is why in this autumn, and this is fresh news, the Commission will come forward with its own proposals on how to prepare ourselves, our union, for more members. This will include a technical assessment of the impact of future enlargement on the union's functioning and key policy areas. It will touch on how we need to adjust EU structures to ensure the proper functioning and loyal cooperation in an enlarged union. We will also present the Commission's ideas on Montenegro's accession treaty and the safeguards we are proposing, which will set a precedent for the countries that follow. And we will come with new ideas on gradual integration. Already now we are offering our candidates access to aspects of EU membership even before they join. Rome, like at home, is an easy example to explain. We are exploring how this approach could be expanded, potentially even providing access to single market while providing incentives to speed up the convergence. This final aspect of gradual integration will also help us make the transition smooth so that there is a smaller impact on our market when new countries join. That's good for companies, for workers, and for our society as a whole. I look forward to the debates we are going to have on the future of the enlargement, and I count on the European Economic and Social Committee to be vocal in this debate. You have consistently made the case in favour of enlargement, and your work is at the heart of the social transformation we are aiming to achieve. I would like to end with one very important point. Somehow, with the enlargement process today, we are going back to the roots of why the European Union has been funded. Not as yet as the European Union in the 50s, but it was the reaction to the wars we had before in Europe. One of the most important values of our European Union is peace. There was never a war on the territory of the European Union. It has been war on the territory and bloody wars, and now again in Ukraine, on the territory of Europe. But once we are together in the European Union, we don't make wars anymore. And this is the main idea of the European Union. Perhaps we have forgotten in the past. My mother was born in 1932, and she's not alive anymore. But whenever I grew up in the communist Yugoslavia, whenever we had to struggle or fight at home in the family, she was saying, as long as there is no war, everything will be okay. At some point, we told our mama, now stop talking about war. There will be no war anymore. But it happened. It happened 3 hours after, in June '91, 3 hours after my country declared independence. It was not bad. It was only 10 days, but it was really bad in Croatia. It was bad in Bosnia. It was bad in Kosovo. Not anymore. And please, you are right, we have to gain also the green light of all EU 27 member states that the newcomers will be able to come. We need you all. And please, we have to explain why this is important. It's not that we will have to pay for the candidates, that they will be better in economy, that they will evolve democratically. They will contribute to our peace, to our freedom and our prosperity. It is our duty of all of us that we take care of our continent, that we unite our continent in peace, freedom and prosperity. I count on you.
Thank you indeed, Commissioner. That was an extraordinary, passionate and convincing and inspiring speech. So I'd like to thank you. I think you speak for many of us, whether we're in the west or the north or the south or the east or wherever we are. Peace is the ultimate and peace is the goal, and that we should never, ever take our eyes off it. So I now introduce the debate, and I have a list of speakers here from the floor. So I'm starting with Krzysztof Boland from Poland. Krzysztof, the floor is yours for 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you,
and
President,
raise
for
your
giving
hand
the floor.
because
I'm sitting there on the far right, but I'm not the far right.
The far right, okay.
Now, Commissioner...
I never knew you were on the far right, but go ahead.
Give me please 10 seconds more, yes, because of our conversation now. So now, when navigating towards the EU membership, the European Pillar of Social Rights, and especially the new action plan on the pillar, should serve as one of the most important beacons. The implementation of the pillar already during the accession process to be effective should happen in the cooperation between governments and the civil society organizations. The Commissioner mentioned the positive development of Poland after the accession. Thank you very much for that. That is true. However, the experience from the previous enlargement rounds also shows that the accession without strong social dimension and without a strong civil society dimension often leads to strengthening of populist movements and is lowering the acceptance of the EU membership in a long and middle-term perspective. So therefore, we will continue with our enlargement candidate members program as the EESC. Thank you very much to the Commission for supporting it, because it's playing really an important role in the whole enlargement process. Thank you very much. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Christoph. And now I go to Stefano Malia from Malta. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, for your very heartfelt speech. It was very much appreciated. I have no doubt that in the years to come, new history books will be crafted and they will show the sacrifice and the courage of the thousands of Ukrainian men and women that have given their lives defending not only their families, not only Ukraine, but also defending us from the power-hungry designs of Russia. So I have two appeals to you, Madam Commissioner. First and foremost, let's bring Ukraine in as quickly as is politically possible. So let's not have just one Super Tuesday. Let's have many Super Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, as Fridays, as is needed to bring in Ukraine to its rightful place amongst us. My second appeal to you is that on the other side of the equation, there is us, the European Union. We all know, although we don't always say it loudly, that we need to reform the way we work. We need to reform our institutions. We need to reform our processes if we are to be able to receive not only Ukraine, but all the other enlargement countries. So my appeal to you is that let's make sure we are ready, because it would be a tragedy of epic proportions if Ukraine had to be on our doorstep and we would have to tell them not yet, not now, because we are not ready to receive you. Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Stefano. And I now go to the President of Group True the Workers, Lucia Studnica. Check this time.
Thank you very much, President. Dear Commissioner Kos, I would first like to give you a warm welcome to our plenary on behalf of the Workers' Group. As we open today's discussion on the EU enlargement, we must address a core pillar of our European model, the state of social dialogue in the candidate countries. Beyond just passing laws, true social dialogue requires the transition to main EU values like democracy, labour rights and rule of law, to ensure social cohesion once candidate countries join the bloc. Unfortunately, too often, these rights exist only on paper, hindered by fragmentation and legal restrictions. EU enlargement should not only be about expanding borders, but also about expanding fairness, dignity and democracy to every worker in Europe. This can be achieved by strengthening workers' rights, defending collective bargaining and freedom of association, and fully realising the European pillar of social rights. We urge the EU and national governments to invest in genuine structures that treat independent trade unions as equal partners in shaping reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Well said. I now go to 321, Zornisa Rusinova from Bulgaria. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, dear honoured guests. EU enlargement is not just a technical exercise. It's a geopolitical necessity and a strategic investment in Europe's future strength, stability and influence. But enlargement can only be successful if people trust the process and if aligning laws with the acquis is not just an institutional exercise, but it's understood, accepted and owned by society. And there comes the role of our Economic and Social Committee, but also the national economic and social councils. because the role of social partners, of civil society organizations, is to bridge the European institutions and governments within the whole process. Our councils are not simply consultative bodies, they are platforms for democratic dialogue, trust and consensus. So I encourage the network of national economic and social councils to also participate in the enlargement countries and to support all enlargement countries to build such national economic and social councils together with the support of EESC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donista. Well said. And we now go to Violeta Jelic, Croatia. The floor is yours.
I will speak Croatian. Thank you. Poštovana povjerenice, kao predsjednica Odbora za praćenje stanja na Zapadnom Balkanu želim naglasiti kako nam je važno da proširenje ostane jedan od ključnih prioriteta Europske unije, te kako organizirano civilno društvo mora biti aktivan partner u tom procesu. Kroz naš rad u EESC-u već godinama povezujemo Europsku uniju i zemlje Zapadnog Balkana. Organiziramo forum civilnog društva i konferencije na visokoj razini kao i događanja u državama kandidatkinjama, a sve u cilju osiguranja da se glas civilnog društva čuje tijekom cijelog pristupnog procesa. Veliko zadovoljstvo mi predstavlja što su danas s nama i naše kolege iz država kandidatkinja. Njihovo sudjelovanje dokaz je da postupna integracija već donosi konkretne rezultate. I na kraju želim ponoviti već istaknuto da je proširenje strateško ulaganje u sigurniju, otporniju, konkurentniju Europu, kao što ste i sami rekli, a ne samo tehnički proces, što je spomenula i kolegica prije mene. Ako ga vodimo na temelju reformi, demokracije, socijalnog dijaloga i aktivnog sudjelovanja civilnog društva, ono će donijeti definitivno stabilnost, prosperitet i gospodarski rast i Europskoj uniji i budućim državama članicama. Hvala vam.
Thank you, Violeta. I now go to Stefano Palmieri, President of REX. The floor is yours, sitting at 279. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Commissioner Kos, in our committee, we always support an enlargement process built on reforms, the rule of law, and the active participation of organized civil society. Through our joint consultative committee and civil society platform, we have developed a strong partnership with our counterparts. This body provides a structured framework for dialogue, help monitor progress in the accession process, and ensure the reform being real and lasting benefits for citizens. When needed, we speak for our democratic standard, fair election, judicial independence, media freedom, rule of law, labour rights and human rights, including, for instance, in Serbia and Turkey. Candidate country and Ukraine in particular are also teaching Europe valuable lessons. They remind us that resilience and security depend not only on institution and defence capability, but also with a strong and empowered society. Moldova's experience in countering disinformation and foreign influence is highly relevant for the European Union. The ICC is also actively supporting the implementation of Growth Plan and the Reform and Growth Facility. We believe that civil society must be closely involved so that this effort enjoy broad public support. Dear representative from enlargement candidate country, we count on your partnership as we continue to promote an inclusive and credible enlargement process. We, dear Commissioner Kos, we look forward to continuing and further strengthening our excellent cooperation in the year ahead. We have to work together for the EU enlargement to reach one of the most important global public goods, peace. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much, Stefano. And now I go to Pavel Trantina from the Czech Republic. Pavel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President. Dear Madam Commissioner, thank you for joining us today. I'm happy to see you after a year after the Prague conference, New Impulses for EU Enlargement again. We in the European movement appreciated a lot your kind and active participation in our debates with the online participation of civil society representatives from the candidate countries there. They reminded us that enlargement must be an inclusive process and that organised civil society should be a genuine partner throughout this. But to play this role actively and effectively, civil society organisations need adequate and predictable funding to engage in reforms and to contribute to the accession negotiations. Madam Commissioner, I know that you are a great ally in this, but I would like to encourage the whole Commission to make this a priority, because as we know, supporting civil society is an investment in a more credible, inclusive and successful enlargement process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pavel. And the final speaker is Teppo Sakinen from Finland, sitting at 329. The floor is yours. There you are. Thank you.
Mr. President, Madam Commissioner, enlargement is our geopolitical imperative. Its success is made through progress in individual policy fields, including energy and climate policies. Achieving our climate targets in a larger European Union and decreasing our dependency on energy imports will be a challenge for both existing and new member countries. But as you said, Commissioner, we can be stronger together in this field too. There is a new tool available that could support us, and that is the international credits that was adopted as part of the EU 2040 climate target. Here at the EESC, we have proposed using these international credits to help candidate countries decarbonise. This could also be a potent tool in the reconstruction of Ukraine based on clean energy and clean technologies. This way, we can pave the way to enlargement and deliver cost-effective emissions reductions while contributing directly to EU climate targets and reinforcing our energy security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teppo, and thank all of you for very thoughtful and convincing contributions to this morning. So I will now, Commissioner Koss, ask you to reply. Thank you very much.
How many hours do I have? Thank you so much for this great atmosphere in the hall. It's good to see that here in this room we already have candidates and Europe together, and I can feel your readiness also from the leadership that we work together on the unification of Europe. Some points. Really, you're rightly so, we should even more support the civil society organizations. We used to say in the past that media is the fourth power in every country. I don't trust media anymore. Actually, anybody can be media through the social media, also spreading the lies. But I do trust civil society organizations being the watchdog for what the government is doing and what is happening in the country. That's why, for the first time, we have ever, on the level of the European Union, a civil society organization strategy. So we will go into how can we cooperate better and also how can we finance them better, including the independent media. For instance, during the parliamentary elections in Moldova, we have seen, and later in other countries, that independent media is a question of national security. If the people will not get or are not getting credible information, they will not be able to decide in the process of the elections. So how can we do this all together? This is what we will do. And also talking facts. Here you can play a big role. I have heard many disinformations. I have had an interview on Moldovan television, and the first three questions I have gotten were, first, is it true that the European Union will tear down all the Orthodox churches once our country will become a member of the EU? So I was very diplomatic and answered very politely. The second question has been, is it true that we will not be able to raise our own chickens and pigs? Then I was very suspicious what kind of question, but again I was politely answering. And the third question has been, is it true that all the cities in Moldova will have to organize a gay parade? And then I said, now, you, Madam Journalist, what's wrong with you? Then she told me that actually they just took the statements which have been spread around Moldova before the parliamentary elections. Please, let's take care about the truth. And speaking the truth and the facts, Montenegro will not endanger the EU. Montenegro, sorry, representatives and ambassador, you really are a small country. You are 650,000 people, so you cannot endanger us. But you will be a great asset once joining in the EU. Or the fake news that Montenegro will cost us too much. 300 million per year. We have done the financial package. 300 million euro per year, meaning 0.27 euro per citizens of the European Union per day. It is less than one coffee. We can afford Montenegro to become a next member of the EU. And Zornica, nice that you have been talking about the trust, or Lucy, that expanding EU is also expanding fairness and dignity. I agree with you. For me, the Article 2 of the European Treaty is a kind of Bible, what we have to do. Taking care about human rights, taking care about our dignity, taking care about minorities, taking care about our values, taking care that every person in our EU is treated fairly. So, since I don't have 1 hour, I will stop here. Dear Mr. President, dear all, thank you for your invitation, and thank you for all your work you are doing in enabling, bringing new countries into the EU. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner dear Marta. Thank you for that, again, inspiring answering to the questions. And we need you fighting the social media lies, much more of that. Firstly, enlargement contributes directly to building a safer, stronger and more resilient Europe. Yes, of course, that means security, but it also means having citizens. If you have us at the heart of Europe, it allows a Europe that will be even stronger than that. It also means it's an investment. Enlargement candidate members will do well. As you pointed out, the Polish example. I could give you the Irish example. Yeah. There are many examples where countries do very well and become net contributors. It is an investment. So, to conclude, the momentum is already here. We are learning in Europe that we have to be European. We have to fight for the values of European membership. We have to live with the diversity that is across all of the countries, and that we respect each other's culture, language, even the pigs and the chickens. So let us be very clear. This is the forward place for Europe, a new Europe based on the values and strengths that brought us out of World War II, which we must never forget. And as the Commissioner pointed out, never forget the other wars in more recent times, which have also caused so much pain. So thank you sincerely, dear Marta, dear Commissioner Koss, for being here. Thank you for those contributions, and in particularly, thank you, the candidate delegates who have been here. We would now like to, just before we go, invite the moderator and the speakers to the stage, and we will take a small break before we get ready the next part of the debate. Thank you all for your attention.
Dear members, dear guests, I would like to ask you kindly to take your seats, please. We will be starting shortly. Please take your seats. Excellent, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure and honor to welcome you. My name is Teona Lavrelashvili, and I have the pleasure of moderating the first panel that explores how EU's enlargement strengthens and builds safer, more resilient and secure Europe. And I'm more than pleased and delighted to welcome our distinguished speakers to join me on stage. Mihai Popșoi, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Moldova. Nerijus Aleksejūnas, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Lithuania to the European Union. Thank you. And Ariane Rodert, Rapporteur of the European Economic and Social Committee's opinion on the Union's preparedness strategy. Thank you. Dear speakers, dear members, distinguished guests, as President noted this morning, indeed today's discussion takes place at a decisive moment for Europe. Enlargement is increasingly recognized not only as a geopolitical project, but also as a strategic investment in Europe's own security and resilience. The challenges we face, from conventional security threats to hybrid attacks, do not stop at EU's borders, and neither should our collective response. At the same time, resilience cannot be built by governments alone. It is never a top-down approach. Civil society, local communities and social partners are indispensable to strengthening democratic resilience and preparing for future crises. In this respect, the EESC's Enlargement Candidate Members Initiative, we have to acknowledge this is a pioneering example of how candidate countries and potential candidate countries can already participate in EU policy-making process. Our discussion will begin with a video message from David McAllister, followed by 2 rounds of questions with our panelists before opening the floor to enlargement candidate members and EEC members. Let us therefore begin by hearing from David McAllister, Member of the European Parliament and Chair of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. Please, his video will be displayed shortly.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to address you today at this plenary session of the European Economic and Social Committee. As Chair of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, let me highlight the European Parliament's unwavering commitment to the EU enlargement process. I am glad that this commitment is shared by all EU institutions present at today's meeting. EU enlargement is far more than a procedural step. It is about strengthening our shared values and deepening our integration. The European Parliament has consistently championed enlargement as a cornerstone of the EU's foreign policy, driven by the conviction that a united Europe is stronger and more resilient. In today's climate marked by the rise of authoritarian narratives and hybrid threats, an enlarged European Union is a geostrategic imperative. Candidate and potential candidate countries, just as EU member states, face external pressures and disinformation campaigns that seek to erode public confidence in our European project. The European Parliament considers supporting candidate and potential candidate countries on their respective paths towards EU membership as an investment in our collective future. Enlargement countries are more than just prospective future members of our Union. They are key partners in our immediate neighbourhood. As highlighted in Parliament's recently adopted resolution on the EU's enlargement strategy, the core elements of this process lie in strengthening democratic institutions, the rule of law, and the protection of fundamental rights. By working together with our partners, we can ensure that these principles are upheld and that the enlargement process contributes to the stability, prosperity and well-being of all Europeans. This requires a comprehensive approach that engages governments, parliaments, civil society and social and economic partners to ensure that all stakeholders are actively involved in the decision-making process. Enlargement remains merit-based. The fundamentals must be fully implemented and the entire EU acquis needs to be transposed in national law. This is, of course, an enormous task for all the enlargement countries, but they are not left alone in this endeavour. The European Union and individual member states provide technical and financial support. The European Parliament is committed to ensuring that the enlargement process is not just about meeting criteria. It is about mutual trust, political commitment and a common vision for a united and secure Europe. So let us continue to work closely with our partners to advance this process and support the aspirations of all candidate and potential candidate countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman McAllister. I think it was a very good start also to our panel discussion. I would like to start, Deputy Prime Minister Mihail Popsoi. Your country has become one of the clearest examples of how security and enlargement are becoming increasingly intertwined. And as Commissioner Kos also mentioned, there was a Super Tuesday. You have opened external relations cluster and before fundamentals cluster that marks obviously very important milestone on Moldova's accession. But beyond this procedural significance, I am wondering how the accession process is translating these benefits and greater security and resilience for Moldova, and what is your government's priorities for the next phase of negotiation phase?
Thank you. Indeed. First, I would like to mention that it was a great pleasure to hear today some of the biggest promoters of enlargement, Marta Kos and now David McAllister. But it turns out, I learned today by being for the first time here in the European Economic and Social Committee, that it is in fact this institution that is by far the biggest promoter and the biggest champion of enlargement, because you already have here side by side representatives from the candidate countries, which is wonderful, and I commend Séamus Boland for the wonderful leadership and being such a great promoter of enlargement. When it comes to Moldova, we have been incredibly pleased to have finally opened the cluster on fundamentals and now the day before the cluster on external relations. This validates the process that if you work hard and you deliver for your citizens, then you are treated with reciprocity by your partners in Brussels and in member states alike. We will double down now with the new government on the reform agenda, because at the end of the day, we're doing it for our citizens. We're doing it for improving the quality of life back home, improving the quality of services, improving the standards when it comes to rule of law, combating corruption, human rights, because that's what our citizens demand of us. And if it also helps us to join the EU, it's a great bonus. But the main driver is domestic. And we rely on a great partner in our civil society, in our independent media, in our trade unions and business community. This is the holy grail of democracy. Businesses, unions, and civil society. And we have great cooperation with all stakeholders back home. We may not always agree, but this is exactly the point. Disagreement is not a bug, it's a feature of democracy. As long as we all have the best interest of the country at heart, as long as we are guided by the same principles and the same destination to be part of the European family, then discussions in good faith and supporting each other in creating better legislative outputs and implementing those legislative outputs is what helps Moldova reach the point where we are now. But of course, we are more ambitious. We want to open all the clusters as soon as possible because we have been ready to do that for a year now. And if the process is truly merit-based, we should have done it a year ago. But we are still happy that finally we were able to break the ice, and we will continue to make sure that we under-promise and over-deliver. That has been the ethos of the government that I have the honor of representing here, because Moldova has waited for far too long. We have waited for 3 decades. We have no more time to lose. We have seen our brothers in Romania join the Union and flourish. We have seen our great friends in the Baltics, in Poland, and elsewhere in Eastern Europe who have broken away from their tragic history that we shared. We have no more time to lose. So we are now surging ahead, and we are counting on the support of our wonderful friends in European institutions and in member states alike. And the EEC is a great institution to help us along the way, and especially once we get to the point of ratifying the agreement, so that you are our partners and our voices in your respective countries. Thank you very much, and I'm really pleased to be here today with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Popshoy. You've highlighted very important aspects of bottom-up resilience, of working for the citizens, giving concrete benefits that also, of course, is directly linked to the transformational power of enlargement. And this brings me to Ambassador Alexei Vunas, because your country, in less than 6 months, Ambassador will assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union, and we're wondering what will be your country's key priorities to promote Europe's resilience, but also particularly in relation to EU enlargement process.
Many thanks. And first of all, I would like to thank Mr. President and Head of Cabinet of the President for this very kind invitation. It's the first time when I'm addressing such audience of your committee. And I really believe that you are doing an important job, and we will be meeting more and more before the presidency starts. And I agree also with Deputy Prime Minister that you are front runners, showing a message also to other EU institutions, how it's possible to have representatives from the accession countries, and how they can contribute to the work of your institutions. So really I hope that this example will be used also for others as well. Now maybe 3 points, just to start on priorities, to say why EU enlargement is important for us, and maybe finishing with concrete things that we are going to do during our presidency. So our presidency will start in 168 days. I'm counting it because it's always on my screen every morning. I see how many days left, and it is a small reminder that presidency is coming. It will be the second presidency for us. So the first presidency was also related with enlargement because Croatia joined during our presidency. And we will have 5 priorities which correspond very well with the activities of this committee: defense and security, competitiveness and MFF, social agenda, internal security, hybrid threats and resilience of our societies, and EU enlargement as very important priority. So why EU enlargement is so important looking from our perspective? Firstly, I would say that we are now in totally different geopolitical context. If we can learn something from Russia's war in Ukraine, is that there can be no gray zones in Europe. We need to have our own neighborhood with us, our countries which are neighboring current European Union being part of our family, because these gray zones creating tensions, they are creating motivation for Russia. And I think we need to have all countries which want to join, which are doing reforms, and to be part of our family. Also, I think EU enlargement is really win-win policy. There were a lot of arguments about economic successes of Poland. I think Irish example is another. Lithuania could be another example, because when we joined the EU in 2004, our GDP per capita was 46%. Now we're around 90%, and I think it's the biggest improvement talking with all countries which joined 2004. And we are talking a lot about success and importance for us, but I think it was also important for those countries which we are part of EU at that time, because it was new market, it was new opportunities, and sometimes maybe we are forgetting this angle that it was really important for all of us. And then I think it is also the longest period of time when the EU is not enlarging. If we would look from the first enlargement in 1973, we are enlarging on average every 6-7 years, and now it's 13 years after Croatia has joined. And I think Europe needs fresh blood in order for the project to continue and to run. And what we will do our best in order to make progress in the accession negotiations with Ukraine, with Moldova, with Montenegro, with Albania, and also will be working with other countries of Western Balkans, with Iceland, if they will decide so. So ready to work, ready to do our best, because we're really true believers on enlargement.
Excellent, Ambassador. Thank you very much for this very clear messages and outlining the key priorities of your country's presidency. You mentioned enlargement as a win-win scenario, which indeed is the case, and I believe the major winners in this process will be the citizens themselves. And this also brings me to our speaker, Ms. Ariane Rodert. Your opinion has been supporting the whole of society approach on preparedness. And what does this approach mean in practice, and how civil society, organized civil society, but also local authorities and citizens become genuine partners in this process, so that preparedness becomes a bottom-up approach that, as Ambassador mentioned, then that will be embedded then in this win-win scenario.
Well, thank you. And first of all, thank you to my fellow panelists here and for you for setting the stage. So yes, preparedness has been a subject of this committee over the last year, I would say. We had an own initiative on the contributions of civil society. And then we worked as a subcommittee on the Preparedness Union strategy, together with two of my fellow colleagues, Thomas Arvidsson, Group 1, and Julia Barbucci from Group 2. And the reason why we're here today in the House of Civil Society is really to look at the contributions of civil society. So I'd like to start with what is the whole of society approach. Well, in the strategy that has been launched by the Commission, it's coupled with two other strands, whole of government and all hazards. And that is also to capture that a crisis or threat could be anything from something short-term, local, to something long-term that goes on for a long time. Sorry. So the whole of society approach is really about that preparedness is a shared responsibility. It is about empowering all parts of society. And what we mean there is about public authorities, it's about civil society, businesses, trade unions, and of course citizens as well. And when we speak about preparedness and whole of society, we take a bit of a broader view of the concept itself. It's also investing in social cohesion and inclusion. It is in working in preventing a crisis by trying to address the root of any kind of tension in a society. So it's more than the infrastructure and the military capacity. This is about really having resilience in society. So we advocate for a cross-sectoral, multidisciplinary cooperation involving all these stakeholders. So you asked for some practical tips or ideas, and I'd like to mention 3 points. The first one is that civil society is mentioned, but not really fully understood. And this is something I think we've heard from the speakers today, and I'm sitting among friends here in the room, but we know that in some cases, civil society is not fully captured with its opportunities and its capabilities in, for instance, preparedness. And when I look at some of the opinions we've done, and we look at the contributions of civil society, we know that some of these contributions are essential for us to be resilient and prepared in society. And I'll mention a few, and I think we should keep Ukraine, our friends in Ukraine, at top of mind, because this has proven itself that civil society has had such an active role during the conflict. So, building trust, increasing cohesion between stakeholders. Civil society is locally rooted for a long time and can build inclusion and can also build this trust that we need when it comes to preparedness. It is also about reaching hard-to-reach groups. It's about preparing for vulnerable groups. It's about sharing information. I think you, Séamus, said we may be difficult sometimes, but it's also being the watchdog, reporting, keeping an eye on some of the key features, such as fundamental rights and democracy. And that's why it's so important to capture and understand these contributions as assets before, during, and after a crisis. But also keeping in mind, again, going back to Séamus' comment about us being a bit difficult, we have to be independent as civil society, autonomous. And the state is responsible for the security and safety of all the citizens. Civil society can engage on its own terms. My second point is that if we really realize that the unique contributions of civil society, we have to make us a true partner. In many cases, we are informed about initiatives, or there may be consultations, but not really true partnership. So civil society must be involved when it comes to the strategic planning of preparedness at the same or equal footing as other stakeholders. It doesn't happen everywhere, and we have to recognize that. But then we get into a challenge, because civic space is challenged in Europe and globally, so we have to counter and combat that shrinking space by giving civil society a right to exist and the right resources to engage in meaningful engagement. And my last point is that the best way of building these partnerships in a whole society approach is to start practicing together, getting to know each other. In Sweden, I'm from Sweden, we have been sitting down with the agency in charge of civil defense and civil society stakeholders to discuss our roles and responsibilities. We have different roles and responsibilities. Where are the red lines? Where can we complement each other? That's a basis for understanding how we can work together. And then after that, it is also about doing joint exercises, training, sharing information, and not just civil society and the agencies, but together with the business sector and other stakeholders. So it's a way of just starting and practically really getting us to know each other, building trust relationships, and get that capacity for resilience. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for this comprehensive explanation of the key messages from the opinion. In fact, I particularly liked your remark regarding the anticipatory manner of measures, because it's not after or during the crisis that Europe should react, but it's also prepare in advance. And this is where the foresight and importance of foresight activities are becoming more and more important. So before opening the floor to our candidate countries and members, I would like to go back to Minister Popšoy and ask you regarding the hybrid threats and the lessons learned, because your country, Minister, has been at the forefront of fighting misinformation, hybrid attacks, all these attacks, cyber attacks. Therefore, what is, in your opinion, the key lessons that the EU, but also candidate countries, should learn from Moldova to address these threats?
Thank you. Indeed. First thing, in order to addressing a problem, you need to realize that you have a problem. And with foreign malign interference, in some countries, where it's a bit more subtle than it is in our end of the woods, it's easier to take it as part and parcel of democratic process. You know, they say this, they say that. But when you realize that there is a deliberate foreign entity-funded interference in your political process to sow division, to undermine trust in your democratic institutions, to smear your elected officials, to sow animosity between social groups, then you need to take action. You cannot afford not to take action. And I remember when we were talking to our friends at the Venice Commission at one point, and one member of the Venice Commission was telling us, I was still in Parliament back then, that you not only have the right to defend your democracy, you have the obligation to defend your democracy. But it's also very important how you do it. Don't get me wrong, there is a very fine line between national security and attempts and actions to safeguard national security and actions that would undermine democracy, freedoms, and individual rights. And what is the important lesson that we learn in Moldova, that you always have to stick to your principles and to your core values and never use this slippery slope and under the disguise of ensuring national security to undermine the democratic freedoms of your citizens. But an equally important lesson is that it has to be indeed a whole of society approach. And in our case, one of the most well-known symbols of involvement of civil society in combating disinformation is this incredibly brave young journalist that from one of the most authoritative investigative newspapers in Moldova. She infiltrated herself into this organized criminal group funded by the Kremlin that was undermining Moldovan democracy. And she spent a couple of months working undercover for this entity. And then she showed the whole country, and in fact the whole world, how this inner mechanisms of Russian interference in our political space operated. Because, law enforcement had their own investigations, but law enforcement cannot share with the broader public the inner findings of a criminal investigation. Whereas this incredibly brave young journalist really made a remarkable contribution to combating Kremlin's interference in the Republic of Moldova. And this is something that really makes me proud of as a representative of Moldova. Not only do we have brave, independent journalists, and in fact, we are a regional leader when it comes to freedom of the press. But this brave young journalist is a woman, and we are proud to have one of the highest women participation in politics rate, not just in our region, but in the world. When I was still Deputy Speaker of Parliament, there was a situation when I was joking with my colleague, the Speaker. We had a woman President, woman Prime Minister, Chairwoman of the Constitutional Court, and woman Governor of the Central Bank. So I was joking with the Speaker of Parliament that he doesn't fit. He is the odd one out. But we make sure that we truly are united as a society. And Moldova's progress is a testament to the unity and solidarity of the Moldovan people, but it's also equally a testament to the incredible support and solidarity from the international community that has stood by the Republic of Moldova through tough times and allowed us to persevere and to reach this point where we are now one of the front runners of the accession process, for which we thank you enormously.
Thank you, Minister, for sharing this inspirational story as well from Moldova, from your country. And indeed, we have to cherish all this bravery and courageous women and men who are defending democracy at local level, regional levels, that are so much indispensable for this success of democracy and survival of democracy. Ambassador, in fact, yesterday I was looking one of the interviews, I think it was 10 or 15 years ago, when you were at that time speaking about importance of security and strategic autonomy and importance of enlargement. So I want to ask you, before even this accession of countries, and because we speak a lot on gradual integration, importance of security, but how exactly the candidate countries, in your opinion, should be already integrating from the lenses of security in the European Union?
Thank you so much for your question. Maybe I will start by saying that we need to change a little bit attitude on new member states. And I fully agree with Commissioner Kos that we need to look at them not only those who are asking something, but those who can contribute, and especially to contribute to European security. I think Mr. Deputy Prime Minister talked a lot about Moldova's experience. And I think when we talk about FIMI, when we talk about, Russians' different tools, what they are using, region and experience what we have in Moldova is also very useful for us, because you are like testing polygon of many things what will be happening in Europe later. So that's why we need to learn, and that's a very important contribution what new member states can give to us. Maybe another example, it's Ukraine. With their, combat tested army, with their experience they gained in the last 4 years under Russia's war in Ukraine, that's something that we'll never get as Europeans. So that's why we need Ukraine with us. Maybe a small example, a few weeks ago we had drones incursions in our airspace. It was, huge shocking experience for our society when 800,000 Lithuanians were asked to go to shelters. So for many of them it was, reminding the first videos what we saw in Kiev when the war started. Kids in the schools, they were crying because they were afraid that they will be killed because of these drones. But the first instinct what we did, we asked Ukrainians to help us. We asked them, how can you share your experience, how to fight against these drones? And that's exactly, I think, very good examples why we need to change this narrative about EU enlargement. We need to talk more with our societies, explaining that enlargement is something positive, because what happened in the past, enlargement was always somehow associated only with negative things, that it will be some complications, that it will be bad impact on agriculture, on different sectors. But as I spent many years in the enlargement, I know that EU enlargement policy is a very creative policy. We can always find solutions if there's political will to enlarge. We have opt-outs, we have very long transitional periods, we have all toolkit what we can use in order to succeed. Talking about how and what we should do in order to bring our neighboring countries who want to join us together with us on security and defense. I think we are using this term gradual integration. Maybe it's not the best word. Maybe we need to talk a little bit about pre-accession, pre-membership, what we can do with the acceding countries. I'm talking about such initiatives like SAFE, for example, which is dedicated for EU member states, but at the same time, the first time Ukraine is treated like a EU member state, because what is produced in Ukraine is counted as European product when you are counting necessary thresholds for different products. So we need to look to the new countries as part of our family, which we need to prepare and help them to be ready for the accession. And another example is the European Democracy Shield. It should be really part of our interest to have the shield expanded for the future member states. Also, we need to think about dependencies, economic dependencies, on dependencies on Russia, on China, and we need to already start working with these countries in order to have them at the EU when they will be already much more in a healthier situation, not to stuff, just these dependencies before, not after membership, but before. So that's what we need to invest now.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you also for highlighting the importance of communication. As the Minister also mentioned, we have ratification process ahead after opening and closing chapters. So therefore, communication with the citizens is indispensable, and this also where the role of the civil society and EESC's role will become even more important, in my opinion. Now I would like to open the floor for the questions and remarks from our enlargement candidate members and EESC members. Please, I would like to kindly ask you to respect allocated speaking times. I would like to first invite Ms. Katarina Glaskova, 3 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Dear moderator, dear speakers. First of all, I want to say thank you to the European Economic and Social Committee for such initiatives like Enlargement Candidate Members Program, because it's really important for each candidate country to be more involved in all the policy making, all this process in the European Union. And in from the perspective of the practical side, it's important to the countries, to the candidate countries and member states to cooperate in some fields, especially in security. We discussed a lot today. And listening to this discussion, I would like to share some lessons from Ukrainian side, especially from Ukrainian business experience. In Ukraine, security has become a much broader concept than only defense. Today, security also means cyber resilience, business continuity, employee safety, protecting critical infrastructure, energy system, ensuring that companies can continue operating in such huge situation in Ukraine despite constant disruption. Over the past years, Ukrainian business have had to adapt faster than ever before. And this is unique experience. Sorry for, I understand how it sounds, but we will be happy to share with you. I fully understand that, and we never want to be such experts in such fields, I mean, as a country, as a business community, but again, we have the war in our country. And according to the recent to the recent survey conducted by Deloitte Ukraine, More than half of the surveyed companies now in Ukraine systematically implement business continuity plans, demonstrating that resilience is becoming an integral part of corporate government rather than simply an emergency response. The same survey shows that companies continue investing in employee protection, energy resilience and security measures despite an ongoing war. The expertise leads to, this experience leads to an important conclusion, that enlargement process should not be viewed only as a candidate countries learning from the European Union, but also, as today we also discussed it a lot, that is opportunity for the European Union to benefit from the practical experience of the candidate countries. Ukraine has developed expertise in responding to the hybrid threats, strengthening cyber resilience, again protecting employees, maintaining business continuity and adapting rapidly to crisis. There are not theoretical discussions for us. They are our daily practice, our life. This is also why the role of business deserves greater recognition. In Ukraine, businesses are not only employers or taxpayers, they are active partners of government and civil society in strengthening resilience and supporting communities and maintaining economic stability under this extraordinary circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The floor now goes to Mr. Bayarunas, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear speakers. I fully agree that enlargement is fundamentally about Europe's security alongside economic benefits from both sides, and we were discussing this. From the business perspective, I do speak from Lithuania's industrialist perspective. European security indeed depends on economic resilience, not only armies and strong societies. Competitive industries, resilient supply chains, reduced strategic dependencies, secure energy systems, and so on, are essential pillars of European security. This is why EU enlargement should be seen as a strategic investment in Europe's resilience. For business, enlargement is not simply about opening new markets. It's about building a larger, stronger and more secure European economic space by integrating candidate countries into European value chain. Business also needs predictability, and we also discussed this today. Whenever possible, candidate countries should progressively participate in the single market, industrial ecosystem and infrastructure initiative before accession. Early integration encourages investment, accelerates reforms and supports convergence well before membership. Finally, the whole of society approach, which also mentioned while we speak about security. So this approach must also include business. Companies own and operate much of Europe's critical infrastructure and industrial capacity. Therefore, we need continuous cooperation between public authorities, business and civil society. To conclude, enlargement is a strategic investment in Europe's future security, resilience and competitiveness. The sooner candidate countries become part of Europe's economic ecosystems, the stronger and safer Europe will be. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Excellent timing. Thank you. Thank you. The floor now goes to Ms. Andrich, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the committee, Your Excellencies. Thank you for the opportunity to address you and to share ideas with you. As a trade unionist, I strongly believe that the most resilient and secure societies are those where human rights, including workers' and trade union rights, are protected by the rule of law and functional democratic institutions. Decent work, effective social dialogue, inclusive growth and sustainable development guarantee resilience of the society, of any society. Free, independent media are the best prevention from disinformation and malicious propaganda. Inclusion of all social actors from candidate countries into different EU processes or institutional arrangements like enlargement candidate members, joint consultative committee or associated status within Centre for Democratic Resilience can contribute to more unity in defending the values and jointly building more resilient Europe as a whole. All this above should be in focus during the enlargement process, should be in fact priority of the enlargement process. I appreciate very much the form, the procedures, but please also have in mind the context and not just doing the checklist, but also deep digger in the processes of the enlargements. Serbian social partners, employers, trade unions and civil society organizations are on board for all inclusive and constructive processes in debates. It's our job to strongly support accession process within the country, but also in debate with all institutions on the international level. As members of the European Trade Union Confederation, we are also very much engaged in all processes which will contribute to the Serbian faster accession to the EU. We are very much responsible also to monitor and to put on the table all difficult topics which will lead us to really constructive accession process in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now the floor goes to Ms. Baumler, please.
Thanks for the floor. It's positive to speak here and have the possibility to make a statement. I will continue in German. Ich kann mich meinen Vorrednern anschließen. Die Erweiterung der Europäischen Union ist eine große Chance, Europa wirtschaftlich zu stärken und die Resilienz Europas und die nachhaltige Wirtschaft in Europa zu verbessern. Es ist unbedingt notwendig, dass wir hier zu einer engeren wirtschaftlichen Zusammenarbeit insgesamt in Europa kommen. Die Voraussetzungen hierfür sind, wie meine Vorrednerin auch gesagt hat, dass wir in den Beitrittsländern die Sozialpartnerschaft stärken, dass wir in der Lage sind, zusammenzuarbeiten, Gewerkschaften wie Arbeitgeber und den sozialen Zusammenhalt insbesondere stärken. Die Voraussetzung für beides, für die wirtschaftliche Einbindung der Beitrittsländer wie auch für den sozialen Zusammenhalt, ist für mich ein gemeinsamer Rechtsrahmen. Und David McAllister hat schon darauf hingewiesen, dass es eine Herausforderung sein wird, die vielen EU-Rechtsvorschriften umzusetzen. Ich glaube, dass da ein weiteres hinzukommen muss. Dieser Rechtsrahmen muss ein gemeinsames Wertefundament haben. Es ist unbedingt notwendig, dass wir uns über unsere Werte verständigen, uns bei unseren Werten annähern. Anders werden wir es nicht hinbekommen, ein stabiles Fundament für eine Zusammenarbeit in Europa zu haben. Und ich will zum Abschluss darauf hinweisen, dass dieser Weg auch seine Risiken hat. Es ist die Beobachtung der Beitrittsprozesse, dass mit eines der größten Hindernisse für diese wirtschaftliche Integration und damit auch für die politische Integration darin besteht, dass wir die Korruption überall in Europa in den Griff bekommen müssen. Dies ist die Voraussetzung dafür, dass wir einen gemeinsamen Binnenmarkt liefern können, dass wir auch die Beitrittsländer finanziell unterstützen können. Und deswegen müssen wir darauf immer einen Schwerpunkt legen. Dankeschön.
Excellent timing. Thank you very much for the intervention. And now floor goes to Ms. Naz from Economic Development Foundation, Turkey, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to address the Economic and Social Committee. I come from a country which is the oldest candidate country, dating back to 1987 and 1999, but of course our accession negotiations are on hold. However, because of our customs union relationship and our association, I can say that we are aligned in many areas relating to the single market. In the last couple of years, we have seen a loss of trust and belief in membership in Turkey. However, despite criticisms and despite problems, I can say that a plurality of the Turkish public prefer and would like to live in a country which is governed by EU values and EU norms. I also come from a country which experienced a devastating earthquake in 2023, claiming nearly 600,000 lives, and also from a city of around 16 million where geologists expect an earthquake to happen in the next decade. So here resilience is very, very important, especially not only in the face of natural disaster but also man-made crises as well. Here I would like to focus on the link between democracy, accountability, the fight against corruption, rule of law, justice and meritocracy. Democratic accountability requires politicians and those holding power to be held accountable for their actions. And when we have a culture of impunity penetrating the society, it becomes more and more difficult actually to manage also these issues related to resilience. People tend to take matters into their own hands or act pragmatically to benefit from the lack of accountability. So this creates a whole of society, maybe deterioration in values. One of the priorities in EU enlargement is, of course, to support democratic governance and resilient societies. Democratic conditionality mechanisms in this regard are very important but not sufficient by itself. We have to make sure that the adherence to norms and harmonization with the EU acquis should not be limited to legislative harmonization, but it should be linked to civil society and peoples. So as in Jean Monnet's words, we are not forming coalitions between states but union among peoples. So I would like to mention that civil society should play a very important role, and transboundary alliances will have to be very important. When even your fundamental rights in a democratic society, such as a voting right, are in danger, you have to know that you are not alone and you are part of a larger community of citizens who are in solidarity and maybe who share similar problems. So survival strategies are vital, and it is vitally important for civil society to be resilient and to form these transboundary networks to be able to protect freedom of expression, other rights and liberties. So here, finally, I would like to mention two important issues with regard to civil society in this regard. One, funding. Funding of civil society is very important for their survival. And second, mobility. We talk about people-to-people contacts, so visa liberalization and visa facilitation is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now the floor goes to Ms. Chavalet from EC, member of EC, Group 3. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, speakers, for your valuable insights. And we often describe enlargement as a geopolitical project. However, today it is equally a security and democratic resilience project. As well, it is about the people. Russia's aggression against Ukraine and growing hybrid and as well drone threats, as it was mentioned, in our countries have shown that security cannot rely on armed forces, on public institutions. This means two things. First, strong, resilient and well-prepared societies are the heart of Europe's security. And second, the whole of society approach should become an integral part of the enlargement process. As it was mentioned, enlargement should be therefore a two-way learning process. Candidate countries have valuable experience to share, and while the EU can help strengthen democratic institutions, protect civic space, and involve organized civil society in resilient planning and preparedness efforts. Lithuanian experience show that resilient societies are being built long before crisis occurs. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now the floor goes to Ms. P. Chakchik, 3 minutes, Center for Investigative Reporting of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Please.
Thank you very much. For Bosnia and Herzegovina, European integration is not simply a geopolitical choice. For us, this is also an opportunity for the democratic transition, but it is a security issue. We are a country that is still struggling from the post-war issues, trying to cope with the EU agenda that is definitely a goal for the country, at least by deliberate confession of the political leaders, but also struggling with the malign influences in the region from the neighboring countries and some other countries coming from known actors in malign influences, Russia, but we also have the malign influence coming from the Middle East and more recently coming from the former partners like US. Security cannot be achieved only through institutions alone. It depends on the citizens that trust institutions, and that is an area that Bosnia and Herzegovina struggles probably the most, because the trust in the institutions is lower than the trust in politicians individually, showed by the recent polls conducted in the country. Democratic institutions are fragile. Corruption and political polarization create security vulnerabilities long before military threats. and we have experienced those as well in the recent past. In that context, the EU enlargement process should insist on rule of law as the first, because there will be no economic prosperity without the proper rule of law implementation. Transparency and democratic accountability are also very much a core security priorities. Civil society organizations are often the first to identify democratic backsliding, corruption, foreign influences, disinformation campaigns and misuse of public resources. It is the civil society organizations that still remain the only institutions, if we may call them that way, to recognize the issues and problems that are that lay in the foreign influences and malign influence through disinformation campaigns. Independent media, watchdog organizations and human rights groups provide an early warning function that strengthens societal resilience. In that context, a whole of society approach should move beyond consultations that we have seen so far. Civil society should participate meaningfully in the proper monitoring of the reform implementation on the EU path. It should be an early warning system that is actually appreciated both by the local actors in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also by the international partners, being the European Commission and European institutions in Brussels. Designing anti-corruption measures in a country that is struggling with the corruption, that is extremely important position. Oversight of EU-funded projects and EU activities is something that civil society can actually really help, and of course development of national resilience strategies. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you very much. And our last intervention comes from Ms. Rogosic, EESC member Group 3. Please.
Regards to all. For a safer and more resilient Europe, we need policies and capacities that can respond to crises and enable rapid recovery, from security threats to climate disasters and economic shocks. This means strengthening geopolitical stability, defense and the fight against hybrid threats, while also ensuring independent institutions, free media, anti-corruption efforts, energy security and social protection for citizens. Preparedness requires the ability to anticipate, plan and coordinate crisis responses. Enlargement follows the same logic. Europe is safer with a stable democratic neighbourhood, and candidate countries must implement reforms in practice. And finally, a safer Europe is not possible without a strong civil society that mobilises communities in crisis, protects democratic values, monitors the institutions and connects local needs with European policies, both in member states and in the candidate countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all of you who have contributed to the discussions with very relevant recommendations and measures, I have to say. I would like to briefly go back to our speakers. We have 1 minute per each speaker. Minister Popsoy, I would like to start with you. Could you please pick up some of the most relevant aspects that you would like to respond and reflect in 1 minute? Thanks.
I think the best thing we can do to maintain unity in our society and to build resilience in our society is to make sure that we provide all the resources that we can possibly provide to consolidate our civil society. It is true that, unfortunately, some of the big donors that were known to be big promoters and beacons of hope when it comes to democracy promotion have reduced this support. And it's understandable. It's a sovereign right of each country to decide how they choose to spend their taxpayers' money. But democracy needs protection. Freedom needs protection. And when we have authoritarian regimes attacking countries that are symbols of democracy, symbols of hope, like Ukraine, then we need to stand united, democratic societies, in defending our values, because if we don't defend them now, then we can unfortunately be on the receiving end of those decisions later on. So I'd like to thank you for your civic initiatives, for your commitment, for standing up for the values that we all share. Thank you.
Excellent, Minister. Thank you. Ambassador, your take on, please.
3 very quick points. Firstly, I think that enlargement will bring Europe stronger, will make Europe stronger. and that's what we need to believe. Secondly, we need to have a credible EU enlargement process. If candidate countries are delivering on their reforms, they should be accepted. They should become a part of our family. We need to be credible. And thirdly, I think we need to persuade our societies about enlargement. And the role of this committee is really, really important. Because myself, I spent 10 years in Brussels in different positions. We spent years and days and nights discussing different directives, regulations. But the basis of European project are links between our societies. That our societies believe in this policy. So that's why I think you can do that, and we can really together achieve this goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rodert, may I ask you to conclude this?
Yes, first of all, thank you for all the excellent contributions. And I want to start off by saying that we have to work together on preparedness strategies as well. And that means that we have to empower all the stakeholders involved. Crises do not stop at borders. They impact us all in different ways. And as my colleague Gaia said, we can learn from each other. That exchange is important. We have a lot of learning to do together. And also I echo the colleague from Ukraine saying it's not the best practices, but they are practices that we have discovered and we can learn together. So I think that's the thing. The multi-financial framework will have some strands when it comes to preparedness, so we have to keep an eye on that as well, still being negotiated. And my second point is that civil society is a partner in its own right. But the whole of society approaches that all stakeholders work together, not separately with institutions and authorities. And civil society needs to have more support in many countries and contexts to be on equal footing. So again, it goes back to the importance of giving us the resources, the visibility and recognition that we are a stakeholder in our own right. Thank you.
Excellent, very clear messages. I would like to thank our distinguished speakers for your contribution, for very interesting reflections. Of course, our enlargement candidate members and EESC members for your comments and remarks. I believe that today's discussion has demonstrated that EU's enlargement is not just ticking another box or another wave of enlarging and bringing some countries in the club. But it is all about making our own union stronger, much safer, secure, and of course also competitive. And this will be the discussion of the second panel. But before that, I would like to ask you to have your warm applause to our speakers for this contribution. There is a small technical break, short technical break, and then I would like to then hand over the floor to Igor Soltis for the second panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your good example. Thank you. See you very soon. Looking forward.
Dear members, dear colleagues, it's time to start second panel, if you allow me. I know it's a late hour and you are tired and you are probably thinking about the lunch, but we have also to start with the second panel. So I'm looking for your attention that we could start. Thank you. So now we are starting the panel 2. The format will be similar like in the panel 1, so we will start with one round with our distinguished speaker, and then we will open floor to the member of EESC and also to the enlargement candidate member. So, if you allow me, I would like to present our distinguished speaker. First of all, we made some changes in the list of speakers. So first I would like to say hello to His Excellency the ambassador of the Republic of North Macedonia, Zulfi Ismaili. Then I'm very happy that we have with us Oleg Ruibu, the EESC member and rapporteur of the opinion, which will be also represented very shortly here, and Andrei Zorko, also EESC member, co-rapporteur of this opinion. So the topics of this first or second panel will be oriented more or less on how to accelerating socio-economic convergence with the European Union. Why? Because the acceleration of the socio-economic convergence between the enlargement countries and the European Union is a key driver for strengthening Europeans' overall growth, resilience and competitiveness. Beyond economic integration, this process requires inclusive policies that empower citizens, businesses and the workers to fully participate in the single market. So social partners and the civil society play an important and a crucial role in fostering dialogue, supporting reform and ensuring that convergence translates into tangible benefits for people on the ground. Because, you know, in the end of the story, all this reform need the public support. Without to feel this, I mean, without to present on the relevant way what will be the benefits to the people, that will be very difficult to get enough support for all this reform. Because believe me, all reforms are not so easy. So sometimes some of the reform really affect a lot the situation. But therefore, we need cooperation, we need the dialogue, we need open floor for the all relevant stakeholders and the partners. So I will start the second panel with a question to His Excellency Ambassador. So North Macedonia has made significant progress in the European path and is already closely integrated with the EU economy. And in your view, what are the most important reforms and investments needed in the coming years to accelerate social economic convergence with the EU and ensure that North Macedonia businesses and workers can fully benefit from the participation to the single market? The floor is yours.
Thank you. I think this is working. Thank you, Igor. Dear President Boland, dear members of the committee, dear colleagues. I have a little deja vu at the moment because 3 years ago I was in the same similar panel as a guest of your committee here. And 3 years ago we didn't have gradual integration. We didn't have the reform agendas. We didn't have the growth plan. We actually didn't have enough support for the candidate countries to implement reforms. And we didn't have enlarged candidate members. So sometimes we forget that in 3 years we achieved a lot of progress. And this is good because progress, continuous progress is very good, very important. But that's why I want to say thank you to actually the Commission, the Member States, the European Parliament, but especially the European Economic and Social Committee for being the first institution of the EU to accept representatives from the candidate countries in their regular work. This is what we are asking from the other institutions, and some, at the moment, we have increased political dialogue and so on, but still it is not at the level this committee provides for our representatives. So 3 years ago, the process was still 3 years ago, the process was you finish the negotiations, you close the clusters, you close the chapters, you sign the treaty, ratify the treaty, and then you are in. So what we were doing back then was asking to have this accelerated integration. As we fulfill the reforms, certain aspects of the single market will be open for us. Like I said, thankfully, after a short period of time, I think in the growth plan was proposed in mid-2023, and then for a short period of time it was implemented, and now we are seeing the fruits of this. Because the time is limited, I would just say that I agree with you that we have done, as North Macedonia, we have done a lot of reforms. And this is because of our strategic goal is from the very beginning, very beginning of our independence, EU integration. We are a long-term, unfortunately, long-term candidate country, more than 20 years. But also, it is out of necessity, because our trade is more than 70% related to done with the member states. Our people travel and work in the EU, and also our values are European. So just maybe to finish that, the challenges or the reforms needed are strengthening of rule of law, and also the reform needed for the single market. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I think that these messages are very clear. And I could really just admire that North Macedonia, after so many obstacles on the path towards, still fight with a lot of optimism and keep going with all these needed reforms. So, compliments. Thank you, Ambassador. And now we are moving to Oleg Roibu, and to have a chance to very shortly present your report. But my question goes in that way. Your opinion stressed that reform linked to the growth plan must only be delivered quickly, but also enjoy genuine societal ownership. This is really important keynote. And why is establishing a structure and institutional framework for social dialogue so important, and how can governments ensure that employers, workers, and civil society organizations are meaningfully involved throughout the reform process?
Thank you. Indeed, our opinion is about the free facilities we're talking about, but in the same time, in this house, we try to look a little bit broader and to see what is the destination of this journey, because the free facilities have a destination, which is the accession in the EU. And that is the reason we try to look what is the social and economic model that we have in the EU, and how the countries that benefit from those facilities can reach this setup. And that is the reason we believe that the organized civil society, as we have it in this house, but also at the level of the member state, of every member state, is a solution that can be implemented and should follow this pattern in the future member states. Because actually, the civil society as we see it, business, group 1, then workers, group 2, and then the civil society organizations as group 3, actually represent the entire society. And the journey toward becoming a member of the EU is transformative. There are a lot of reforms that are changes that are being implemented in the countries, and it is the different sides of the society that needs to apply, implement, understand, and be part of those reforms, because otherwise is just some laws and regulations that are adopted, then implemented, and there is no sense actually in the process. And it makes also the life of those jurisdictions easier, because when the society understands particular reforms, why they are being implemented, how this is going to transform the society, what are the goals of those reforms, then it becomes easier after the adoption. Coming back to the structure of having the businesses, trade unions and civil society organizations at the same table, this is not easy, and we see that every single day in this house, because those three groups come from different angles, they have different objectives, and it's difficult to reach a compromise. It's important not to dilute the message when looking at a particular matter, but it's also important not to have a zero-sum game. Because otherwise, when you have the feeling that every time you lose, then the concept itself of putting those groups together loses. That being said, that is the reason we're proposing to make the transition from the ad hoc approach toward the organized approach, to offer to those groups a voice in the dialogue, and in the same time to make sure that those organizations are representative and the society is represented in the dialogue with the decision makers.
Thank you. I could not more agree with your opinion that for sure sometimes it's very difficult to put together, to sit together, to get a quick compromise, especially when these reforms sometimes are doing on the very fast track. So sometimes they're very lack of the time to harmonize everything, and this is also quite, maybe in some circumstances, different views about the structure of this reform. So, Mr. Zorko, allow me to ask one question. The opinion also places particular emphasis on the Western Balkan and the role of organized civil society in the enlargement process. Looking at the region today, what lesson should the EU and the candidate countries draw from the implementation of the growth plan to ensure that reform are both credible and supported by citizens?
Okay, first of all, thanks for the questions and welcome. Because I have opportunity, I will speak in Slovenian language. I think it's good if we can speak in our mother language. That means that European Union is also very fruitful and every language is respectable. Kakorkoli, mislim, da je glavni nauk, ki ga lahko potegnemo iz tega mnenja, nauk, da bodo reforma, pa da so reforme uspešne, samo takrat, kada se ne smatrajo kot tehnični proces med vlado in pa med Evropsko komisijo. Se pravi, da ne gre zgolj za, rečemo temu, tick the box sistem. Namreč načrt za rast Zahodnega Balkana je izredno pomemben. Predstavlja eno zelo, zelo veliko priložnost, to je za vse države Zahodnega Balkana, omogoča jim gospodarsko približevanje, omogoča jim dostop do notranjega trga in pa seveda tisto, kar je za marsikoga v tej državi kandidatki zelo pomembno, to je dostop do evropskih sredstev. Vendar pa je treba vedeti, da bodo ljudje reforme, ki so potrebne za pridobivanje določenih evropskih sredstev, da so reforme, ki so v povezavi s tem načrtom, potrebne, da ljudje bodo te reforme razumeli in jih bodo jemali za svoje samo pod pogojem, torej, da jim bodo prinesla boljšo kvaliteto življenja. Torej, da bodo delovna mesta kvalitetnejša, da bo varno in zdravo delovno okolje, da bodo verjeli, torej, da bo v osnovna načela demokracije, da bodo verjeli v vladavino prava, v svobodo medijev in vse to je tisto, torej, kar ljudje morajo te reforme čutiti. Ne? Potem bodo tudi verjeli v neko evropsko perspektivo. Zdaj, to pomeni, da da mora gospodarskemu približevanju, ki je seveda core business znotraj tega načrta, mora biti hkrati torej tudi socialno približevanje, to je v državah kandidatkah. Zato je eden od zelo pomembnih kriterijev in bi jim tudi moral biti, je tako imenovana, to je socialna varnost, to je prebivalcev v državah kandidatkah, to je, da nekako reforme, ki so njim namenjene in reforme, ki dejansko bodo posledice najbolj občutili oni, a ne, to je, da bodo občutili te pozitivne spremembe. Treba je vedeti, da sicer širitveni proces je politični proces, vendar pa ima posledice na vsakdanje življenje ljudi. Iz tega razloga se mi zdi pomembno, to je, da so seveda tudi socialni partnerji, civilna družba vključeni, aktivno vključeni tako v pripravo teh procesov, kot seveda tudi potem v spremljanje implementacije teh procesov, teh reform. Brez aktivne civilne sfere, brez aktivnih socialnih partnerjev, brez učinkovitega socialnega dialoga težko govorimo o tem, da so reforme uspešne. Težko dobimo tisto pravo informacijo o tem, kakšen je dejanski učinek teh reform. In še mogoče čisto na koncu je en nauk, ki mislim, da je tudi pomemben, seveda je namenjen evropskim institucijam. Širitveni proces je političen proces, to sem že dejal, ampak širitveni proces temelji na nekih kriterijih, na nekih ciljih, pričakovanjih, ki jih evropske institucije postavijo v vsaki državi kandidatki. Zelo je pomembno, da se ti kriteriji ne spreminjajo tekom pogajalskega procesa, da se ne blokirajo zaradi bilateralnih odnosov, da ne prihaja do nekih zahtev, ki mislim, da niso prave. Ne? In iz tega razloga je treba imeti enake kriterije za vse države kandidatke, enak pristop in pa enake vatle.
Najlepša hvala, dobra argumentacija. Zdi se mi, da pravzaprav brez tega razumevanja, da je to obojestranski proces, težko pričakujemo, da se napredek zgodi hitro. Sorry, because I also use this language. I'm also from Slovenia, like my colleague, so this is my privilege. So, thanks. Well, to translate, I just said that what he said is very correct. That this negotiation process is a mutual process. We have many sides, European side and the candidate country side. So we have to respect each other. We have to respect all relevant partners and all relevant stakeholders, because dialogue is one of the, the basic milestone for each progress. But just surprisingly, I'm coming from the Regional Cooperation Council. And the Regional Cooperation Council every year makes so-called Balkan Barometer. And last year we presented here the results of the Balkan Barometer, and surprisingly, the support of enlargement process in the Balkan countries increasing. Especially what is really encouraging, mostly youngsters are the great supporter of enlargement. This is a very important message. So, dear speakers, thanks a lot for your participation. It was really a pleasure and honor to have you here. And now I would like to open the floor for the, audience, for the enlargement candidate members and EESC member. So please respect timing on a screen. Be strict to yourself, and also respect other colleagues that we could offer all of them to have chance to speak. Allora, we will start with the first hour, the floor, and very rich 3 minutes go to Juliana Hoxha. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and friends, for me as an Albanian, it's a double pleasure to be in Brussels today after the Super Tuesday, when Albania provisionally closed its first 3 negotiating chapters. This is undoubtedly remarkable progress and worth celebrating, but it also raised a deeper question. What do these benchmarks actually deliver for the people they are meant to serve? When we talk about Western Balkans convergence with the European Union, we often reach straight for macroeconomic metrics, GDP growth, purchasing power, line legislation. But true convergence is more than numbers on a chart. It means that the citizens in Albania enjoy the same protection, the same rule of law, the same sustainable landscapes as a citizen in any European country. Economic resilience cannot deliver without democratic fundamentals. The growth plan funding can only transform our societies if it is matched by inclusive governance, real institutional scrutiny, and meaningful public participation. Any shortcuts that bypass them risk undoing the very foundation this plan is meant to strengthen. That's why an indicator to monitor participation and consultation in the integration process, not just a line in a report, would catch consultation gaps early before they turn into a crisis. Albanian civil society has spent years advocating for exactly this balance, raising concerns about strategic investment law and the amendments to the law on protection areas. Reforms that have weakened the environmental oversight our most fragile ecosystems depend on. Nowhere this tension is clearer than in the public debate that is happening nowadays in Tirana over the Vjosa Marta protected landscape. When citizens and environmental advocates speak up, they are not standing against progress or foreign investments. They are standing for the very values Europe claims to represent: the Berne Convention, transparency, institutional accountability. Support for the EU membership, as it was mentioned by you, moderator, in our region is at a decade high, 64% today from 39% a decade ago, which means that the raw material for public ownership is there. It just needs to be translated. Civil society role is to turn technical reforms into plain language and push for real monitoring committees, public hearings, transparent reporting, so that citizens do not end up building their own accountability mechanisms in the street at real cost to trust in the reform process itself. Distinguished colleagues, I'm concluding. The civic energy we see today in Albania is not an obstacle to development. It is a message to our government and Brussels alike that European integration is above all a shared social contract. It is not and cannot be owned only by the government. It cannot be delivered unilaterally. It must be co-authored with people it is meant to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. So now the floor goes to Mateusz Szymanski. 2 minutes.
Thank
you.
The
floor is yours.
We discussed how to accelerate socio-economic convergence. My experience is that convergence is treated as a priority when it comes to market and the economy, rather than standards of living and working conditions. The Commissioner mentioned Poland's success. Yes, we have achieved great results. However, although 22 years have now passed since enlargement, wage differences for similar jobs can still be as much as fourfold between old and new EU countries. This is not the convergence we had hoped for, and it is causing justified discontent. Moreover, the widespread brain drain of the past continues to have visible negative effects to this day. Those who left were the people with the greatest potential. Young, well-educated, wanted to develop their careers. Most of them never return. This is why I'd like enlargement to be carried out in accordance with the idea that Mr. Letta refers to in his report, the right to stay. And for this, we must work together to support the candidate countries so that they can implement the European social model at home, even before they join the EU. For I believe that it's precisely the hope of a better quality of life that draws societies towards the European Union. I hope that the EU and its institutions will help candidate countries to implement the EU high standards, that they will advise them on how to create high-quality jobs, on how to ensure that public service system contributes to fair and equal societies, and that their institutions act first and foremost in the interests of their citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you that you respected the timing. So the floor now goes to Madame Lipartelliani. The floor is yours.
Distinguished colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank for the invitation and for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Georgian Trade Unions Confederation, the largest and most representative workers' organization in Georgia. From our perspective as a trade union organization, when we are speaking on social economic convergence with you, we believe that it cannot be measured only by economic indicators or even legislative alignment. Genuine convergence means ensuring that workers have access to decent working conditions, fair wages, effective social dialogue, and effective remedies. Those are foundations which can bring sustainable growth, competitiveness, and European social model. Georgia, it should be mentioned, has made very meaningful and important commitments in line to fulfill association agreements, including in labor legislation, and we re-established labor inspection. But on the other hand, however, we are concerned because of last developments, including in labor legislation, when in 2024, labor legislation for public servants was changed without any consultations with social partners, which is violation of fundamental labor rights, and as a result, public servants' rights were affected and their labor rights, including fundamental labor rights, are ignored. During the last 2 years, the ILO Committee of Standards discussed the case of Georgia twice because of violation of fundamental labor rights, high gender pay gap, and freedom of association. What we face now, we have high unemployment in Georgia, high poverty, and low wages. Just 20 Georgian lari per month, which is minimum salary in Georgia, absence of social protection schemes, including maternity protection and unemployment benefit, high migration, and very low level of collective bargaining and social dialogue, which remain vast majority of workers without any basic protection. In order to advance in the EU integration process, of course, full respect of workers' rights and effective social dialogue, strengthening social dialogue should and must become political priorities. Georgian society's choice is EU integration. It's a process which already brought very tangible results for society in Georgia, and we believe that it is the best way which can bring more improvements for lives of workers of Georgia and in general society in Georgia. It is how we see this convergence from our trade union perspective, and which is foundation of a stronger, more competitive and more democratic Europe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And now floor go to Madame Murafa Benga.
Thank you so much. I'm here. Dear moderator, dear guests, I think that if you ask this summer the average European citizen on the street what they think about when they think about candidate countries, they will tell you about the elephant in the room. And actually it's not an elephant, but it's a flamingo. And I'm really glad that our colleague from Albania brought into discussion this topic, because the flamingo revolution in Albania has made the headlines in the EU public space over the past weeks. And it's not because us Europeans all of a sudden turned into big environmentalists, but it's because typically environmental safeguards are deeply intertwined with democratic safeguards. And when both democracy and the environment are broken, people take to the streets. And it's an important lesson for today's debate about convergence, because convergence cannot be simply measured by GDP growth or by access to the single market. It must be measured by whether prosperity is shared with all people in society, by whether citizens trust the public institutions, and if the development respects the environmental foundations on which our economies rely. We are mentioning, and our colleagues mentioned this in their opinion as well, that convergence must be premised upon democratic consultation and consultation with civil society. I would add another element here. Europe's competitiveness in the next decades will not depend only on economic convergence, but also on ecological convergence, and enlargement should be predicated on this. Candidate states must not repeat the mistakes that we have made in the rest of the European Union, basing our economic growth model on environmental degradation, because now we are paying the price for this economic model. So my question to the panel, the government representative, the civil society representative, how can we make sure that the growth plans ensure that economic convergence is measured not only by GDP indicators, but also by governance and environmental indicators? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your challenge, because this is also very important, how to create the tool, how we'll be able to measure happiness, how we'll be able to measure satisfaction, how we'll measure the really, how to say, effects for and the benefits for the people. The next speaker is Mr. Eliacik.
Thank you, Chair. Before I begin, I would like to pay tribute to the workers who lost their lives in the recent fire in Brussels center. My thoughts are with their families and beloved ones. 6 workers died in a fatal occupational accident in Brussels city center 2 days ago only. So when we discuss EU enlargement, we talk about markets, percentages and GDP. But as a trade unionist, I need to ask a simple question. Who are we actually building this enlarged Europe? In his book, The Little Prince, Saint-Exupéry wrote that what is essential, invisible for the eye. For working people, this is deeply true. The most essential things are completely invisible in GDP charts. Economic growth is incomplete if it doesn't improve daily lives. Enlargement must never be a tool for economic dumping. It must be an investment in social progress. If integration is to succeed, workers must feel it. We need decent work, safe workplaces and fair wages. This is why European Trade Union Movement is calling for Quality Jobs Act across all Europe. Real competitiveness is not a race to bottom. Look at Turkey, for example. We cannot talk about convergence without democracy, freedom of speech, and labor rights. If workers cannot organize freely, there is no real social dialogue. Right now, Turkish workers are on the front lines of the European Green Deal. But without concrete just transition, millions of these people, these workers, will be left behind in the name of global competition. To stop this, we must address to public services emergency. That's what trade unions are always talking about. Healthcare and education are not costs to cut, but they are our ultimate safety nets. Climate justice means we treat energy as a public good. An enlarged Europe, yes, an enlarged Europe must be a social Europe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Madame Debou.
Thank you. I will speak in Romanian if the translation allows. Romanian and Moldovan languages would actually be one, if not for political interpretations. So, aderarea Republicii Moldova la Uniunea Europeană nu ar fi doar un act de reparație istorică, ci un semn de recunoaștere a progresului substanțial făcut de Republica Moldova în ultimul deceniu și rolul ei în arhitectura de securitate a Uniunii Europene. Aproape 1 din 3 cetățeni moldoveni dețin deja cetățenie română, o legătură umană și instituțională care există deja dincolo de calendarul formal de aderare. Procesul de aderare presupune adoptarea celor mai înalte standarde înainte, standardele pe care Uniunea Europeană le promovează și pe care le-am adoptat deja. Dar avem, de asemenea, multe de învățat de la Republica Moldova. Reziliență democratică, față de care o economie de piață funcțională nu este posibilă. Și reziliență economică. A opera la marginea războiului nu este o sarcină ușoară, sub amenințarea dronelor și a întreruperilor repetate în aprovizionare cu energie, precum și agilitate instituțională substanțială, despre care vorbim tot mai des la nivelul Uniunii Europene. Această reziliență capătă o dimensiune suplimentară dacă privim regiunea din perspectiva strategiei Uniunii Europene pentru regiunile de graniță de est și am adoptat o opinie în acest sens și în CESE cu câteva luni în urmă. Este un cadru care recunoaște explicit că teritoriile aflate la frontiera estică a Uniunii, indiferent dacă sunt în UE sau încă nu sunt, se confruntă cu provocări structurale. Depopulare, deficit de forță de muncă, vulnerabilitate economică. Aderarea Republicii Moldova și, desigur, și a Ucrainei ar transforma această frontieră estică dintr-o linie de expunere într-un spațiu de convergență și securitate comună de care avem nevoie. Mulțumesc!
Mulțumesc! Thank you. And the next speaker is Mr. Puka.
Dear members of the committee, let me first begin by thanking European Economic and Social Committee for the Enlargement Candidate Members Initiative. For Kosovo, this is especially important this year, since initially we were excluded. Therefore, I thank all members for reconsidering this decision. The growth plan is one of the EU's most important instruments for making enlargement tangible before accession. But its success will be decided whether society has real power over the reforms, embraces them, and feels that they are part of the process. Environmental protests in Albania are just one illustrative example of this. This is why civil society is essential in monitoring and being part of the reforms. Civil society monitors where the power hides from accountability. It ensures that European taxpayers' money serves people and to a development that is sustainable. Civil society in 6 Western Balkan countries faces growing political and financial pressure and coordinated narratives designed to delegitimize it precisely because it holds power accountable. At the same time, with the withdrawal of USAID from the region, it has created a significant financial gap of over 120 million euros from the region, and only in Kosovo 26 million alone. Every money that disappears leaves a vacuum. The vacuum in this region are rarely filled by anything democratic, thus making convergence even more difficult. So for today, my 2 messages are related to a demand for political support and resources for civil society as an indispensable actor for a sustained convergence to the EU. More specifically, echoing to Mr. Trantina's remark earlier, I want to add that the multi-annual financial framework that is negotiated, funding for independent civil society in enlargement countries must be framed as a strategic investment for a democratic resilience and more powerful EU. The second one, which is more broader point, EU is a peace project built on dignity, democracy and social justice. Earlier this week, a minister from one of the candidate countries had a statement where she said, "Had I been Slobodan Milosevic, I would have ethnically cleansed Kosovo in 1998. That statement is a reminder of what unaccountable power does when nothing stands in its way, and how war rhetoric is still present. We cannot afford not to take action on such things, because convergence is about embracing European values more than anything else. By taking action is how we make sure that no war anymore becomes not only a memory of the past, but a promise for the future. Thank you.
Falimiderit. The last speaker, the last word, floor goes to Mr. Paule Radovanovic.
Thank you. Last but not least. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to address you today as enlargement candidate member, but also as representative of Chamber of Economy of Montenegro and Montenegrin business community. For Montenegro, European integration is a process of deep transformation of economy and society as a whole. This process brings us to the rule of law, stable institutions, efficient public administration, predictable business environment, and fair competitiveness. Without these preconditions, there cannot be a real socio-economic convergence with the European Union. Today, we rightly speak about a new momentum for enlargement. This is encouraging. The EU openness to enlargement and the broader political consensus in Montenegro give us real hope that Montenegro can become EU member 2028. Montenegrin citizens and the business community are eagerly awaiting this moment. However, in order to be fully prepared for accession and to be a reliable and successful member of the Union after joining, we must continue to address the challenges before us. One of these challenges is the meaningful involvement of the business community and civil society in the process of drafting legislation. When rules are adopted and amended in areas such as standards, certifications, public procurement, digitalization, environmental protection, business community must have opportunity to present the challenges it faces in practice and in real life. Consultations must therefore not be a formality, but a genuine mechanism for better legislation and better results. This challenge is also recognized by the European Commission. In April this year with communication, a simpler, clearer and better enforcement of EU rulebook. The Commission aims to assess how excessive and inadequate implementation of EU rules affects companies, what costs it creates, and how it limits growth and the competitiveness of the economy. The second challenge, and at the same time a clear need, is more concrete support for SMEs, because the cost of certification, technical standard, digitalization, energy efficacy represent a serious obstacle. That is why support from EU funds, the growth plan and future instruments must be accessible, simple and understandable. In that regard, the Chamber of Economy of Montenegro prepared a project to support Montenegrin companies on the way to the EU membership 2028 with really concrete information and education programs. Our goal is to ensure that the accession process does not remain only an institutional agenda, but that every company understands the time, what membership brings, which standards it must meet, and how these challenges can be turned into a new competitive advantage. Therefore, at the end, our key message today is clear. The business community should be involved earlier, supported more concretely, and prepared more systematically. Only in this way, enlargement will be not only a political success, but also an economic success for Montenegro, Western Balkans, and European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jovanovic. This is a very important topic, but we will discuss on the next session, next meeting, shortly, I hope so. So, dear speakers, dear audience, I really like to thank you for your great contribution today. And with this, if you allow me, I would like to close this panel and invite distinguished President and Director Superti to come to the stage. Thank you.
So I just want to thank you and moderator and all of the speakers and in the past debate. I'd now like to, because of time we need to move on, to welcome the representative, the director, DG Ernst, Valentina Superti, to speak to you. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President and Ministers, members, honourable members, distinguished guests and colleagues. Of course, it's a pleasure for me to address you today at the conclusion of this European Economic and Social Committee's annual high-level debate on enlargement. And occasions like these, where we gather and take stock of the achievements and challenges in a process as demanding as enlargement, are of great value, including to us in the European Commission. And in this light, I would first of all like to thank the European Economic and Social Committee for organising this event. Why? For a very essential reason, that your role as an advisory assembly in amplifying the voice of civil society and social partners from the member states and the enlargement partners is essential for us. This contribution adds to the strengthening of democracy, promotes EU values, many of you mentioned that, and ensures and safeguards fundamental rights and the rule of law within our and the enlargement region. And civil society and social actors are actually essential in shaping reforms and ensuring broad support and understanding within the society. So you said it, it was said today, enlargement is not just an institutional endeavour, it is a societal-wide process that does require, and it's not just words, a whole society, whole of a society approach, both within the European Union and also across the enlargement region. And this is actually also why we have included the enlargement region within the 2025 EU strategy for civil society. And all this comes at a very pivotal moment. This was also very much mentioned today. Enlargement has regained dynamism, and we haven't seen this since many years. Super Tuesday was mentioned, so it's close to being an historical moment after Mega Monday, which was also recent. As you know, both from the Western Balkans, both Montenegro and Albania made substantial progress in the accession discussions, but also a cluster was opened for both Ukraine and Moldova. What I'm trying to say with this, that this is actually makes enlargement no longer a distant idea, as it may have been only a couple of years ago, but actually increasing a reality. And there is also very much the consideration that expanding the EU will also make the EU itself stronger, safer, more secure, and more resilient. And you discussed this today. Hybrid threats are not to be underestimated. They pose an essential risk to democratic resilience. And we do share these challenges with our neighbouring countries and future member states, who are particularly exposed to these threats. Let me mention that we are aware of that, and we are working also on concrete projects. Let me quote the partnership that we have recently established with the EU agency responsible for cybersecurity. This is ENISA. And the goal of this project is to strengthen cyber capacities and enhance cyber resilience by extending ENISA's tools and frameworks to the candidate countries. And the objective is to integrate the methodology, the EU methodology, into the candidates' institutions, and in particular into the EU cyber security framework. Likewise, we are also mindful of the impact of so-called FIMI, so that stands for Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference, and the impact that this can have in particular on our enlargement partners. Structural vulnerabilities, fragile media markets, polarization, and limited trust in institutions can and does create an environment in which foreign interference and disinformation can have a sustained negative impact. So we are working on that. We have put in place a specific legislation and policy frameworks like the EU Democracy Shield. And also within this type of work, we are supporting fact-checking organization to expose this information, and we are partnering in particular with the European Endowment for Democracy to reach, so the objective is to reach local and impactful media and freelancers, and integrating media literacy into education systems to enhance critical thinking. Very important. And it's, again, enlargement, it's not only an institutional exercise, it will be a success, and it is a success only when governments, civil society, businesses, local authorities, and citizens, of course, work together to drive and sustain the reforms that are needed. And that is actually why we are working on the so-called gradual integration, the growth plan, all those things that were also mentioned before. It's not only for increasing GDP levels. Of course, there is also that from a macro perspective, but eventually it's also to familiarize the whole society with the benefits of EU membership well ahead of accession. So in a way, it's a preparation. The growth plan is a preparation for accession, but it's also a way to show what the EU can mean in practice. Let me mention two iconic projects. SEPA, so this is Single European Payment Area. It's about savings, very important savings for the countries, candidate countries' citizens, and it's an instrument which contributes to create bonds between the EU and the candidate countries. Equally, we are working on roaming. It's already applicable for Ukraine and Moldova, but we will soon be negotiating also for the Western Balkans. Then that comes in addition to the facility, the reforms that those were mentioned before. It's, I would want to stress, it's not just about theoretical reforms that we are talking about. We are talking about areas like judiciary, rule of law, public administration, but also the green. Before there was an intervention on the environment, it's about sustainability, environmental sustainability, but also the digital transition, so important now, data, etc. But it's also about fundamentally strengthening the institution, improving quality of public services, and eventually, the most important of all, deliver tangible benefits for citizens. So with all that in mind, of course, there is a lot of substance. At the same time, It's also very important for us and to work together with you for awareness raising, communication, communicating proactively what is all this is about. So with that, I actually just want to reiterate once more. It's also clear for us in the European Commission, enlargement is a society-wide process that does require a whole-of-society approach, and at the end of the day, success will be measured not so much, although this is a precondition, not so much by the closing of accession negotiations, but actually by the results that these closing of accession negotiations eventually will bring to citizens, all of us. Thank you so much for listening, and to be continued.
Okay, thank you very much. Concluding remarks from me, and then we will break for the summer. First of all, to Valentina Superti, Director of ENST, I'd like to sincerely thank you for those comments and for helping us bring some clarity to the closure of this very excellent debate that we've just had. So I appreciate your comments and thank you for being here. It's very simple. There's a very straightforward message, and we heard it from Commissioner Koss, and we heard it throughout the various speakers here today. The importance of and the indispensable role of civil society in all of this debate. We are talking about an enlargement. We are talking about people, countries who want to join the EU, who want to be part of the European family, who want to be part of the values and principles that espouses the EU. We can do that with a solid, healthy civil society, ensuring that the discussions are held, that the consultations matter, and that civil society in not just the candidate countries, but in all of the countries is healthy and supportive. It has to be nurtured, otherwise we have a vacuum, we have a concentration of power in places where it shouldn't be, and if citizens cannot be part of that, then it's very difficult to be resilient and to be sustainable. And I think that is the very strong message that we bring from enlargement. So I hope that the discussions that are now in place after Super Tuesday, as it's called, will now begin in earnest, and I believe that that technical process will continue, and I hope we will see some action as the Director has said. So let us be clear, the EESC is proud to be part of this process. We are proud to be able to contribute, and I know, because the message was said by Commissioner Koss, civil society in all its forms, through the employers, trade unions, civil society organisations, must be leading this process and must be the vanguard of this process. With that, I'd like to sincerely some thank yous. First and foremost, thank you to the delegates from the candidate countries who have made time and effort to be here. You are most welcome, and I saw some of the countries even at the first EPSO meeting of the Irish Presidency in West of Ireland and Ballina, and I was very pleased to see that. And I think during the Irish Presidency you will see a lot more of that. So really, that's the big win for today. And also thanks to the many of you who spoke, asked questions, who listened and who stayed here through this very interesting debate. Thank you, because that matters, because everybody needs to hear the viewpoints and the points of view. So I appreciate that. In terms of organisation, just to say thanks to the various, in terms of the whole plenary, I always mention the staff of whether it's the secretariats of the sections, secretariats of the groups. I'd like to thank you and all the other technicians who participate in making this plenary happen. A real thank you. I'd also like to thank the translators, of course. Yes. I'd like to thank all of the translators and the other technicians, and I'm probably leaving people out, but all of you, and of course our own registry service who do so much work, and of course led by our Secretary General, the Secretariat and the administration, because this is always a big event, plenary is always massive, and we cannot do it without those help. So there's so many people behind the scenes that we should always recognise and congratulate. And of course, to my own cabinet, to Anna, who had an enormous piece of work in pulling this together. I also give special welcome because you really had to do the work in terms of getting the candidate country members here and all of that. So thank you as well. Okay, yes, I think that's deserved. So during this plenary, we've saw two football matches. We now know the result. We won't be here when the final is on next Sunday, so enjoy. We're now, before I close the plenary formally, just to thank all of you for the first part, or the first 6-7 months of the mandate. Thank you on a personal note for your massive support, your massive help and your massive assistance. It's always appreciated and always remembered, so I really appreciate that. So, in the famous words, I now declare the 607th plenary session closed. Enjoy the summer. Thank you very much.